Thank you. Good afternoon, dear guests, dear journalists, and thank you for this opportunity to have a conversation. I wish good health to all of you. It's not the high time to congratulate everyone with the feasts still. Today is the Easter, and even the aggression of the Russian Federation won't prevent us from canceling this holiday. That's why I would like to wish all of you and all of the citizens of Ukraine, I would like to wish peace and victory, and we will have a victory. And today we have a meeting in a very interesting format. The press service reported that there are a lot of requests, hundreds and thousands of requests for interviews, and unfortunately I won't be able to find the time to talk to every one of you separately. But maybe after the victory, we'll have more time for interviews, for conversations. Now the time is very precious for our country, so I'm ready to have this press conference. So yours the questions and ours the answers. So let's start. So colleagues, please raise your tables. Luke, Guardian, please.
But wait for the microphone, please. Everybody, wait for the microphone.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. We've recently seen rather strange photos from Moscow of Russia's President Vladimir Putin holding the table. Can you explain why President Putin invaded Ukraine? Is he ill? Is he mad? Or is there some other reason?
Well, it's hard to assess and evaluate every step made by the president of Russia. It's hard for me to tell why is he grasping the table or the armchair for the past years. I don't think this is anyhow related to making a decision on committing an aggression against Russia to hold this encroaching aggression against Ukraine, which is happening day after day and year after year, and because we know that this war has been in progress for over 8 years, and we don't want to get used to this encroaching invasion, but unfortunately this is happening. And thinking on the impact, I think it is an impact on Ukraine, and Russian Federation has always wanted to have something like this happening, and frankly speaking, we are repelling this sort of impact or attempt of influencing our country, and we are succeeding. And since the very beginning of our independence, it was only the people of Ukraine who dreamed of this independence. For us, it was important. For the civilized world, it was important, and we can see that based on the support that we are receiving from the friendly nations. Still, the Russian Federation, both at the level of authorities and the level of people, because of the informational policy, and a lot of the society in Russia do not consider Ukraine as an independent country. Well, they don't think that our people have the right to to an independence, don't have the right to leave, and we are struggling for this right to leave, and therefore we are struggling for independence, for our freedom. This is the war for the freedom of Ukraine. The channel Inter, that's the 5th row. Please, the microphone. President, you've insisted on having a meeting with President Putin. Do you still insist on a personal meeting with him? Do you think this meeting may stop the war? How? And why Russia is not agreeing to have this meeting. What's your suggestion? Now, the security component in the frames of the information that were attempts of killing you, that has to be a third country? I'm sorry, what is this? That meeting has to be on the territory of a neutral country. Do you understand the risks that you're facing personally? Well, thank you for this question, or indeed questions. Speaking on the Russian Federation and the negotiations with Russia, from the very beginning I have insisted on the talks with the leader of the Russian Federation, as I believe that any formats of meetings through mediators with Russia or passing this or that information to the leader of Russian Federation through the friendly nations, I think this will not produce the desired effect. I believe this war could only be stopped by the person who started this war. Can you hear us? That's the last train, hopefully not the last train. It's just the final one for today, so let's listen to the subway. So that's partially an answer to you to this question with regards to attempts of killing me. I'm not afraid, but my security is afraid of those attempts. My family is afraid of those attempts of killing me. Now, talking about this meeting with the President Putin, I want the war to be stopped. And there is a diplomatic path, there is a military path. And any person in sound mind would always opt for a diplomatic path, because this person would know that even if it's difficult, but still, the diplomatic path would allow to save hundreds of thousands or even millions of lives. And this is not something that I would willing to have. And any leader, despite his own willingness or desires, has no right to take a decision to not proceed with the diplomatic path. He should proceed with the diplomatic path, and we've constantly made steps with regards to the diplomatic settlement of the military conflict and the war with Russian Federation and our partners, both European partners and the United States and Canada. Now, all of them, they can see that whatever Russia is saying over those past years, claiming that it's Ukraine that is not willing to sit at the negotiation table. Now, everyone can see that this accumulating effect. Now, everyone can see that they should trust Ukraine, and there is absolutely no trust to Russia. And Russia and the trust, they are absolutely difficult words, because whenever they're saying something, it's not the correct information. That's the security issues. I don't remember the second part of the question. I'm not afraid of having a meeting with President Putin if we're talking about the attempts to kill me. Let's just wait for a second. I don't have a right to be afraid of. Our people have showed that they are afraid of nothing. Well, they are afraid of their children, but still they stopped the Russian tanks with their bare hands. And just the same as our armed forces and our National Guard personnel, there's a lot of security issues. But anyway, now you're sure that you are in safety. So the normal leader, ordinary leader, has no right to be afraid when the question has to do with our country, with our independence. Now, CGTN, if I pronounce that correctly, the fourth row, please.
CGTN. Mr. President, you've reiterated your readiness for peace talks with Russia. We know that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is visiting Moscow and Kyiv. We also noticed some reports talking about the US and its allies have centered on the weapons, how to ship the weapons to your country. But at the same time, we know that the Moscow thinks that your continuous appeal for military support from NATO countries would not be helpful for the negotiations. Can you comment on that? Thanks.
Я хочу вибачити.
I'm sorry, can you please repeat the beginning of your question?
The start of it.
From the very beginning, if you can.
Sure, of course. I think you were talking about your readiness for peace talks with Russia. We know that UN Secretary General is coming to Moscow and Kyiv to promote the ceasefire or peace. At the same time, we know some reports talking about the US, its allies, have centered on weapons, how to ship the weapons to your country. And Moscow thinks that your continuous appeal for military support from NATO countries is adding fuel to the fire and can be seen as a deterrent to negotiations. Can you comment on this? Thank you so much.
Дуже дякую вам за запитання.
Well, thank you for this question. First of all, we'll be welcoming the Secretary General, who will arrive to Kyiv. We'll have negotiations. I believe that we have made a lot of steps to change even his position, to have his position being reinforced with regards to the support to Ukraine. I had a number of personal meetings with him, and I told him that you can't have a balance in between of your relations with Ukraine and Russia. We expect 100% support from the Secretary General of UN, because we are the righteous. It is on our territory that the war is coming. If the Secretary General of the UN will have a time, he would definitely need to visit some of these settlements where the tortures were happening, where our people were being killed. And only then the Secretary General would need to find the time to be spent in Moscow. I believe that it's more important to understand what is happening in Ukraine in order to have all the arguments while having conversations in Moscow. Because if you simply arrive to Kyiv just to talk, this is not enough. I believe that first and foremost, one would need to understand what is happening in Kyiv. That's why many leaders, both the Chancellor of Austria, I always suggested them, whenever they would be going to Moscow, they would need to first come to Kyiv, if that's not about political tourism, if that's about the support, the true support, and maybe if you would be able to see that, then his points with regards to Russia and Ukraine would be more reinforced. Speaking about the supply of weapons to Ukraine, we are definitely not interested in the thoughts of Russian Federation. In the beginning of the war, they've also supplied this. You remember the beginning of their aggression, they were on the retreat and they left a lot of tanks behind themselves, so I'm grateful for them to that. Now, and there, please, somewhere in the end, in the final rows, Volodymyr Alexandrovich, in just a couple of days, on the 27th of April, Russia has announced their plans on conducting referenda in Kherson. And based on the experience of 2014, how it all happened in Donbas. It doesn't matter how many people will come. They will draw any result they want. What the Ukraine would do if this pseudo-referendum will be conducted, if they will proclaim the establishment of the Kherson's People Republic, what this would mean for our negotiations, because the people in Kherson, they are pro-Ukrainian, and they don't understand what Ukraine will do after this situation. Thank you for this question.
Якщо будуть знищені
If
наші люди в Маріуполі,
our people
якщо буде
in Mariupol will
проголошено
be killed,
референдум,
if the
псевдореферендум в
will
нових
be a
псевдореспубліках,
pseudo-referenda on
Україна
the
вийде з
establishment of
будь-яких
new
перемовних процесів.
pseudo-people's republic, Ukraine will not continue
Але люди
negotiating.
наші, які знаходяться на тимчасово окупованих
But
територіях
our
Херсоні,
citizens
я ще раз
located on the
підкреслю,
temporarily occupied
не
territories
тільки
of
в
the
Херсонській
Kherson
області, там багато
region, but
містечок і в
in many
Запорізькій
other
області, на
settlements in the
жаль, і на
Zaporizhia
сході
region and
держави,
in the east of
повинні
Ukraine,
знати і
they
повинні
have
не
to know
допомагати
and
окупантам.
they should
Я про це
not
звертався до
assist
нашого народу. Ми
the
знаємо,
occupying
завдяки нашій
forces.
розвідці і
And
завдяки
I
людям
know because of the
звичайним, які
intelligence
живуть,
and
які
because of ordinary
я не
people
можу так казати,
who live
що вони
there.
мають
I
проукраїнську
can't
позицію. Вони
say
мають
that they have
українську позицію.
pro-Ukrainian
Саме
position.
такі
They have a
українці, вони
Ukrainian
передають
position.
такі факти, як
These
ходять,
are the
обговорюють,
Ukrainians who are
по
passing the
квартирах, вони
facts.
ходять, збирають
They
ті
are
чи інші
gathering
дані.
these or that
Я вважаю,
data.
що це не на
And
користь
I believe this is
дипломатичному врегулюванню цієї
This would
ситуації.
definitely
Це
not
точно
facilitate the
завадить
diplomatic
закінченню
settlement of this
війни
conflict. This would definitely prevent
дипломатичним шляхом.
this
Це
war
точно
from stopping in
неправильний
diplomatic
крок з
way.
боку
This is definitely
Росії.
the wrong
Це
step
говорить про те,
made
що
by the Russia.
все, що було до
This
цього,
means
всі
that
ці
everything that
зустрічі
was before
дипломатичних
that,
груп,
all
все
those
це
meetings of the
фікція.
diplomatic
І такий політичний театр з, до
groups or
речі, з
teams is
дуже
just a
поганими
fiction.
акторами.
And this is just a theater with very bad actors.
Будь ласка, Імеді, да?
Okay, now Imadi from Georgia, if I pronounce that correctly, from the fourth row, please.
Mr. President, as a citizen of Georgia and as a journalist, of course, I want to tell you thank you because we Georgians believe that your struggle is our struggle and your victory will be the most valuable for our region to be the democracy. Now I want to ask you, also here our soldiers died the land of Ukraine for our democracy. How you see, what is your view of this thinking, our perspective in European Union, how you see friendship of Georgia, and also Georgian people very worried about the, some details. When will be possible to return ambassador of Ukraine in Georgia, because mostly who really want not be a friend is Russia, you know. Thank you. Immediately, Manana Gabelia.
Да. Дякую за
Well,
запитання.
thank you for the question.
Від дружньої Грузії.
Well, from the friendly
Я вважаю,
Georgia,
що
I
дійсно один
believe
з самих близьких
that,
народів до України, до українського народу,
one
саме
of the
грузинський народ.
closest
І це
are the
починаючи
people of Georgia to the people of
історично і
Ukraine.
починаючи
That's
з першої
historically.
революції ми бачили
That's from the
таку
very
велику
first
підтримку.
revolution that we saw the
І
great
ви
support from
знаєте,
the
і
Georgian
зараз
people. And
навіть,
even now,
коли ми не
when
зрозуміли, скажу вам
we
відверто. І
didn't
в
understand, and
принципі,
frankly speaking,
я можу бути відвертим
and I
з,
believe that I can be
з
talking
грузинами,
frank
тому що ми дійсно
to
братські
the
народи.
Georgians because we are truly
І я
brothering
дійсно не розумію
people, brothering
позицію
nations, and I
лідерів
truly
вашої
don't
держави.
understand the positions,
Да, я
the
не
position of the
розумію, і
leaders
тому я
of
так
your country.
боляче
I do not understand
це
this position.
сприймаю.
That was
І я вважаю,
something
що це того не варто.
that
те, на
felt
що вони
very
йдуть.
painful. And
Запровадження
what
цих
they're
санкцій,
doing
це
is
копійки
not worth it.
в
I mean,
історії
not imposing
двох
the
держав,
sanctions. These are just
В історії такого
minor
сусідства, незважаючи
issues.
на кількість кілометрів, ми
despite
сусіди.
the
набагато
kilometers, the
ближчі,
distance in
ніж
between
ми
of
з
us,
Росією. Ви
we
бачите,
are
у
close
нас з
neighbors.
Росією
We are
війна.
closer
І ми точно не
than
хочемо жодних
with
конфліктів з
Russia,
Грузією. І
and we don't
впевнений,
want
що
to have
їх
any conflicts
ніколи не
with
буде.
Georgia. And
І як
I'm
Грузія
sure and
вийшла
confident there
зараз,
will never
як
be a
вона
conflict in
вийшла
between
на
our
вулиці,
nations. And when
як вийшов
Georgian
весь
people went
Тбілісі
on
він
their streets, when the whole
підтримував. І я
people of
звертався, і наші люди
Tbilisi went on
зверталися,
the
і як
streets, when
ваші
I
люди
called, when
приїхали
your
сюди,
people
і
called
віддаючи життя
for
своє,
the response,
воювали,
and some of your
підтримували,
people
гуманітарно
gave their
допомагали,
lives, and
волонтери,
they
і
provided support.
багато-багато
There
всього за всі ці
were a lot
роки,
of
ще раз, починаючи
volunteers
з
over the
революції,
past
закінчуючи
starting with the
початком
revolution
війни ще
and
з 2014 року.
the
Але я
beginning
не
of war
можу
in 2014, but I
зрозуміти
cannot
поведінки.
understand
Я не
the
вчитель,
behavior.
а
I'm
ваші
not a
лідери,
teacher,
вони не
and
учні.
your
Це
leaders are
дорослі
not
люди, і точно вже
pupils.
не іграшки. Я
They
не
are
розумію,
adult
заради
people.
чого.
And
Заради
I
чого.
don't understand
Не впровадження
what is
санкцій.
the reason.
Я чув
Not
меседжі,
implementing the
що ми
sanctions. I
повинні
heard
захищати свою
messages like
економіку.
that we have to
Яка
protect our
економіка?
economy.
Вже
What
вони відібрали
economy?
частину території
They've
Грузії.
taken part of the territory
Майже
of
дійшли до
Georgia.
Тбілісі.
They've
Яка
reached
економіка?
almost the
Все це того
borders of Tbilisi.
не
What
варто. Я так
economy are you
вважаю.
talking about?
І-
So I do think,
Але
and
впевнений,
but I'm
да-да,
really
що?
sure. I'm sure. Yeah, please,
Що саме?
please. Exactly.
We speak very loudly in political fields, in everywhere, in NATO, in European Union, also in every groups. My question is about the ambassador in Georgia, and also how you see our perspective in European Union together.
Ви повинні бачити свою
You must
перспективу
see your own
в Європейському
perspective in the
Союзі.
European
Я знаю,
Union.
що
You
народ
must see
хоче.
it, observe it. I know that people
Але-
want, they do want.
Таке воно життя.
But this is
Я
life.
впевнений, що
I'm
ви
pretty
будете в
sure that
Європейському
you will be there in the
Союзі
European Union, a
або в
part
НАТО,
of the
де ви
family, or
хочете.
in the NATO where you
Це
want
ваш
to.
вибір.
It's your decision.
І
It's
Україна
up to
завжди
you.
буде
And
поважати
Ukraine will
ваш вибір.
always
Це я вам
respect your
точно
choice.
говорю.
Always. I can tell
Але
it
мені
clearly
здається, що
for behalf of all of us. But
відповіді ваші
your
всередині
answers
вашої
are
держави.
inside your
Так мені
country.
здається.
That's
Щодо
how it seems to
повернення
me.
посла,
Speaking about the returning the ambassador, well,
ми обов'язково повернемо
we will
посла
definitely
до
bring the
дружньої
ambassador back to
Грузії.
friendly Georgia.
Як тільки ми будемо відчувати підтримку
We
України
feel
з
the
боку
support
лідерів,
provided to Ukraine
вашої
by the
влади.
leaders of your government, by your leaders. Thank you.
Дякую. CNN, будь ласка.
Thank you. We have CNN.
П'ятий ряд.
Fifth row, I guess, the left side.
Mr. President, Phil Black from CNN. Could you please give us your assessment of Russia's plans, but also its capabilities for its operations in the east, in the Donbass? Will Russia, or perhaps more importantly, can Russia launch a large-scale push to break through your defensive lines, or is this looming as a slower, longer, grinding military operation? And secondly, do you believe your allies are finally getting the message? Are they sending you the heavy weapons you need? Thank you.
Дуже дякую.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
По-перше, хочу
First of
вам
all,
привести приклад
I'd like to give you an
Києва
example
і
of
Київської
Kiev,
області,
yes, and Kiev region.
яка
Let's use it as an
була
example,
окупована,
which
і вони
had
дійшли
been
майже до
occupied,
Києва,
and they
да?
almost
І були
reached
під
Kiev, the
Києвом
very brink of
бої.
Kiev. We had so
Але
many
тим
like
не менш ми
battles close to Kiev, but we
деокупували цю територію.
deoccupied the
Моя
territory, we freed the
позиція
territory. My position,
особиста,
my personal
людська,
position,
але
my
перш за все, як
human
президента.
position and position
Все,
of
що
a
вони
president,
прорвуть, і
everything
все,
that they
що
will try to
вони,
break,
не дай Боже,
and
окупують, ми
if
все
they,
повернемо.
God forbid, occupy something, we'll
буде
bring it
питання
back.
не 10,
It will be
20
not a
років,
matter of 10
або не
years or 20
війни
years,
з
not
14
a
року,
war
8-річної.
like
Це
we
буде
have it
питання
starting from
того, чи
2014.
буде у нас зброя, як тільки вона буде,
We have this war for
як
8
тільки
years.
її буде достатньо,
Concerning the
повірте
armament,
мені, ми
if
будемо
we have it, if we have
повертати
enough of it,
одразу
we will return
ту
it
чи іншу
immediately.
територію,
We
яка
will take
тимчасово
our territories back
окупована.
immediately,
Саме
the
така
temporarily occupied
війна
ones.
зараз
This is the
у
war
нас
that we
в
have
Україні.
right now
Саме
in
така
Ukraine. This
ситуація на
is the
Сході, на
situation in the
Харківщині.
eastern regions, in
Щоденно
Kharkiv
ми
region.
можемо
Every
віддати,
day
на жаль,
we can
через
unfortunately
потужність тих чи інших
give, due
угруповань
to the
Росії,
capacity of
віддати
certain
якусь
Russian
територію, але
groups, we can
вночі
give
або
a
на
piece of
наступний
territory,
день ми
but
повертаємо ці
during the
міста.
night time,
Міста,
on the next
маленькі
day, we bring it
містечка,
back,
села,
small
і
towns,
йдемо
small
вперед.
villages,
Ми
and we
не йдемо
move
вперед там,
forward. We
де
don't
ми не
move forward in the
можемо,
places where we
де у
can't,
нас немає
where we
тієї
simply have
підтримки,
no
про яку ми говоримо
support that we
достатньо
talk
довго.
about. We've been talking so
Мало
long about
того,
this
про яку ми
support
говоримо
and we talk about
достатньо
this
довго
support
публічно
in public for
і
quite a
набагато
long time.
довше
We present it
не
everywhere.
публічно.
And with non-public channels, just to be frank, we also use the non-public channels. I'm speaking frankly, but we see the change. We see this change regarding our Western partners. We can see the shift. Especially, I can see the change in the speed of response, especially the US response. And if this speed will grow, just like they promise us, if they do it like they promise, if their steps will coincide the words like any decent person should, then yes. And for any leader, that's important to be a decent person. And then we will do it faster. We will free our territories in eastern regions. At any moment, something may happen like you mentioned. For example, in Mariupol right now, at this specific moment, at this second, they are under siege. It's one of the hardest days today. The preparation, they shoot from the sea. We have the shell fire on the land, everywhere, tanks, artillery systems, everything they can use, jets. I had the last message, like they want to prepare such. An hour ago, I got the last message from the guys who stay there. I know what they are planning to do. I know, but when we will be able to go there, we will be there. But so far, we offer again, like any civilized person should, we offer the humanitarian solution, purely humanitarian solution for this issue. Exchange. We offer to exchange civilians in Mariupol, take them back. To exchange for injured people, for wounded. We don't offer the deceased. Unfortunately, we have people who died there, but they left their people. They left Russians there, but we want to bring our killed people out of there. We don't want to leave our people. And of course, exchange of military protecting Mariupol. We are ready for it as well. We offered that. And why, for example, why I had this very sharp response provided at the press conference, like the Russia told something like the ball is on your side, or something like the sentence. This is not true. Again, I want to underline, we offered any kind of format of exchange to get our people out of there, staying in this hell, in this monstrous situation, in such a bloody, in such a, in a sea of blood. And and when the president of Russian Federation recently, I was shown his message, like he gives a conference that the only fortress left, but we will not attack. And after this, in 2 hours, an air raid. Oh. So the question is, it's about pragmatic dialogue. It's not about trust, it's pragmatic dialogue. Thank you, thank you. RBK, the third row, please. I'm presenting RBK Ukraine. So, Mr. President, I have 2 questions. First is more precise. Well, concerning the aggressor's requirements and demands. So, up to now, at this moment, what are the key requests? What they want to get? Like, okay, recognizing these fake entities at Donbass, whatever. Maybe they already refused from something during the hostilities because they failed humanitarian issues or language, what they call like denazification. I don't know what that is actually. What is the pool of requests and requirements? The second is more general question. Regardless of how the events take place, like let's say within the nearest days or weeks, you as a president, how do you think? Are Ukrainian people ready to live in years or decades in this state like the Israeli people live? A militarist country where children have their algebra lesson, then they study how to handle the rifle, so where everyone have to actually take a couple of years of military service. Are Ukrainians ready to exist like this? As we have this threat from the Russian Federation. Sorry for that long question. I'll start from the second part. Thank you. So look, this is not an issue of are you ready or not. I think all Ukrainians, especially all of those who are in the country, who are staying right now physically, I'm not mentioning women and children who left. We have even some men who appear to be a little bit more feminine than they should have. So the majority of Ukrainians, our people, more than 90%, I tell about it. I'm so happy that we have such a state. I'm just and flattered with it. They're not just ready or not ready. We have no other choice. We will be this state. We will become it. We already are becoming it. We have become it. I can tell you. We already are there. We are the state that you mentioned. We are the state. We have to know, and we know that we have to defend our land, and we will defend it. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean that we will dive into hostilities. When we finally win, we will be the state with the best army, the most experienced one. People who are very well experienced, in how to protect themselves. We will be one of the strongest nations in Europe. Again, not because we are so special or unique, but I do think that we are special. But this is subjective opinion. Again, this is my personal opinion. But because we have no other choice. This is the reality we wake up in. This is the reality that we live in. We have the neighbor, that's it. So this is the second part. The first part, regarding the requests and demands from Russian Federation, well, first, as we know, from the media and thanks, let's say, thanks to other institutions. So we've got some ultimatums, some very sharp requests, not about negotiations, but pure demands. Okay, they say Ukraine has to or is obliged to. It's not about dialogue. So first it was like a very, very clear demand, an order, and then the text started changing, the wording was changed, and then they saw that we are united, the state is united. We demonstrated our unity from the very first days of war. They saw it, they observed it. And in a couple of days we saw that this ultimate request, like, we saw this in their messages from Russian Federation. Some pieces vanished out of that. Then the negotiations of the subgroups started, and then they reached, we all know what they managed to reach. So there was a note prepared in Turkey, and as far as I know, Russian Federation first positively responded to that note, to that document, and then inside the country, it was heavily criticized because it appeared to be that not only the government, well, the government actually brainwashed their people. The government didn't expect to get that kind of critique, because they have such a hatred to Ukraine, not just within the government, not just the leaders, but they nurtured their people to hate us. They made their people hating us thanks to fully controlled by Kremlin, media fully controlled by Kremlin. And they were surprised so much later of how strong the hatred is to Ukrainians inside the Russian Federation. And I know that they provided certain messages, like the answers to our notes, to our documents, to our requests, and with these answers, our subgroups, they do work with it. Just to give a brief answer to your question, I do think that the most urgent issue is, of course, the guarantee of security and neutrality, the Donbass destiny and Crimea, of course. No more issues are there. No more issues exist. So everything else is purely just, it's just purely political. Thank you. IBC News, and like the very end, next to the central aisle, please.
Thank you for taking my question. My name is Marcus Moore. I'm with ABC News out of the United States. And you mentioned your openness to meeting with Vladimir Putin. If you could speak to him right now, what would you tell him? And my second question, in reference to the military aid that you're getting from the United States, are you pleased with the equipment that you are getting, not only for the short term, but for the long term if this conflict drags on? Thank you.
Again, I want to tell how grateful we are, a profound gratitude. We are grateful for the support provided by two chambers and American chambers. We even get more than maybe. Well, we can't say no to anything we are provided. We speak about the best military support, and this is American support and British support. We have many other friends, European friends, but of course we recognize fully I speak about the scope of this aid, and I'm fully grateful for it.
Сполучені Штати Америки є
Also,
лідерами у світі, тому вони
USA are the leaders.
задають цей темп.
This is the country who is a leader, and they set the tone. They actually set the tone for any negotiation, and they set the tone for this dynamics of support, and they affect quite often. If any European country can provide armament, they actually can change the situation. This is a very important strategic partner, and I do believe in this strategic partnership, but I really want everything to go faster, to move faster. Concerning the politics, yes, they do support us, and personally, well, I will not reveal a big secret. I don't know if anybody knows. Well, tomorrow we are about to have some American people here. The Minister of Defense will be here, and the State Secretary of the United States of America, Mr. Blinken. I'll have a meeting with her, and they actually about to arrive. So we'll expect. We are waiting for the security situation to allow Mr. Biden to come as well, just to support Ukrainian people. Tomorrow we will have this conversation, and we'll talk about that armament list that we need, about the equipment that we need, and the terms of provision. Again, I want to underline, as I think, the last week, signals, the messages from the last week, you know, these steps, the terms, the amount, the scope. I speak about military equipment and armament from the United States. It's improving, and it has improved. I'm so grateful for it. And this is something that we really expect to get, something that we want. We really want to have, of course, we have wonderful soldiers, but we want to have this heavy armament and strong armament. Azerbaijani journalist, please, the second row. Please take a microphone. So, Azerbaijan, Baku TV agency report. How would you evaluate the mediation of Turkey, the role of Turkey as a mediator in this process, in the negotiation process? And again, how do you evaluate the role of Azerbaijan in this situation, in this war? And before the war, your military always evaluated very highly the experience of our soldiers, of our military in the Karabakh war. So, can they use actually this experience in the Russian-Ukrainian war? And okay, yeah, we do love Azerbaijan. Yeah, thank you. But let's just piece by piece, okay? You have so many questions, and I have a very small stomach anyway. Okay. Okay, let's just how would you evaluate how Turkey and Azerbaijan as mediators in the negotiation process? How do you evaluate Azerbaijan in this situation as a whole? Not negotiation, but I mean as a whole. The Russian-Ukrainian war and the negotiation process. And, okay, that takes time. So, before the war, your military highly appreciated the experience of Azerbaijani army during the Second Karabakh War. And now your army actually... Does your army use our experience while fighting with Russia? Yeah, okay, let's just limit ourselves to 3. And
Не одне питання, вже 3, давайте 4.
Okay, the very last one. How do you evaluate the role of Bayraktar in this war as a military equipment?
Роль Байрактара.
The Bayraktar's role. Okay.
У вас интересные вопросы.
You have very interesting questions, you know, very intriguing questions, I'd say.
Спасибо за
Thank you. Thank you so much for the questions.
Значит,
I'll do it like that.
как я оцениваю
So how do I evaluate the mission of Turkey and Azerbaijan
с точки зрения переговорного
and their role
процесса?
in the negotiation process?
Ну,
Well,
скажу честно,
I'd be very frank.
диалог
The dialogue
с другим
with
президентом
both presidents regarding
посреднической миссии
the mediation.
я вел.
Well, I had these
У меня
dialogues
было
with both of them.
несколько
I had
таких, скажем, переговорных
I had
моментов.
several,
У нас хорошие отношения с
moments.
Турцией и с Азербайджаном.
We have very good relations with Turkey and Azerbaijan both. I would separate this a little bit because Turkey, in Turkey right now,
дипломатические встречи.
well, we have these diplomatic missions taking place of our subgroups. I mean, Turkey shows and demonstrates
хочет быть
that
лидером
this country wants to be a leader among the countries stepping out with this mediation role. Turkey openly expresses its statement, gives a statement that it wants to be among the guarantors. We say it, yeah, the guarantors, the security guarantors. And I haven't received that message from Azerbaijan yet, but President Aliyev always supported Ukraine, I know it, and he supports us. We had humanitarian aid, medical support, and I think that it's okay. It's hard for me to use Russian, you know. That's yeah. So, from this, yeah, when we speak about weapons, I think that for Azerbaijan today, it's really hard when it comes to provision of weapons. It's hard to support Ukraine. It's pretty clear. We can understand this because you have Nagorno-Karabakh. You have this issue. It's still there. It's a very painful historical issue. I understand this, and I can tell you that this is one of not so many countries. I mean, Azerbaijan, we understand you. We actually understand what you're coming through, and we know what your experience is. And this neutrality balance, we don't understand it. I understand. Well, I know why. Because right now, the war may just explode, break out. I know. But we expect to get more. Someday we will stop understanding because we are coming through very complicated times. Every day, yes, every day, people dying. So you have to understand this. But with Azerbaijan, we have very good relations.
Now, the role of the Bayraktar UAVs. Bayraktar is our drones, and as you know, we have this joint production, and we already have some of the drones that were jointly produced. We're supplying the engines for the drones, and there is a lot of them. We are using these UAVs, but with all due respect to Bayraktars and any other military equipment, I need to honestly say that this is a different war, and I'll answer another question of yours about the experience. That's another war, that's a different one, and all the experts say that this is an incomparable war. It could not be compared to any single war in the 21st century. It couldn't be compared with the wars of the 1990s. It was nothing like that. These or that weapons or the drones, they can assist, but they have no impact on the final result, because the history of missiles, artillery, and air defense, this is what plays a crucial role. And not a single war that was waged by Russia on the territory of other independent countries, there was not the level of destruction that it caused in Ukraine. They've used so many heavy armament and equipment, and there was no tortures. There was no attempts of raping women. That was not something that happened on the territory of Ukraine, and God hope it will not happen on the territory of other countries. And it happened so that it is for Ukraine to stop all this, and that is why your countries would need to help us more. Because remember, there's this saying, when they will finish with Ukrainians, if they will finish with Ukrainians, they will pick up someone else. 1+1, the fifth row, please. Volodymyr Alexandrovich, after a small break, I have to go back to the very important question. I'm sure that it's very painful to hear that the situation around the city of Mariupol, we've all seen the video from the basements of Azov Steel, where the children have stayed underground for 55 days. They are running out of food. The authorities considering a way of a military deblocking of the city. Is there any deadline? Because the people located in the Azov Steel, they're running out of weapons, ammunition, and food. So, as the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the country, what would you be able to respond to them? Look, I'm not ready to tell you everything that I'm talking to them as the president, as the commander-in-chief, and we have direct contact with the people on the ground. And I can tell you, these are our cities, these are our citizens. That's why we have all the right, all the moral right to use military efforts to deblock our cities. And we have high hope that we will be able to do that. Whether we are ready to do that now, no. Do not trust anyone about the military deblocking of Mariupol. We're not preparing that at this moment. And those soldiers that are defending that part of the Mariupol city, the Azov Steel, who are blocked in there, the leaders, the commanders, they clearly understand this. That's a reality.
Можемо далі. Так, будь ласка,
Proceed.
Sky News.
Sky News, please, of the fourth row.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. You said that you're willing to speak with Vladimir Putin if there's a chance to find a diplomatic path to peace. But given all that your country has been through, would you ultimately like to see Vladimir Putin before a war crimes tribunal? And given that you've got the US Defense Secretary coming into town on Sunday and the Secretary of State, and you've talked about the importance of weapons from the US and the UK coming quickly, can you, speaking frankly, set out the danger for Ukraine if your allies, like the UK, like the US, stop sending weapons so fast? Is there a chance that Russia will take land and seize and hold land in the east, in the south, and maybe even come back to Kyiv?
Щодо зустрічі з президентом Російської
Федерації,
сказав, я хочу, я не хочу, я мушу.
Я мушу
зустрічатись з президентом, якщо ми
expressed willingness. It's not that I'm expressing the willingness. It's that I need to have this meeting should we are willing to have a diplomatic settlement. Speaking about this war crime tribunal, it's not that I'm willing. It's all of them will face war crime tribunal. All those who issued orders to murder children, women, everyone. I'm confident in that. I believe in that. We know how the international process is having. We know how the International Criminal Court is having his sessions. It takes years, but we will wait. And if those like me will not face that, then our children will wait for that, will face it. That will be a final nail in the policy of that country. Speaking about the... Look, I'm not considering an option that our partners would not be providing us the weapons that they've promised about. This is not something that I'm considering. There's no alternative. We will not give them this opportunity. We don't have other chances but to liberate our territories. There is no other option. There would be no state of Ukraine. There would be no people of Ukraine. Everything will be burned down. That's the alternative. And I do not consider such alternative.
Дякую. Будь ласка,
Thank you. Now,
ТВП, так,
ТВП,
в самому кінці
in the
ліворуч.
very end to the left. Good afternoon, dear President, and thank you for finding the time for us. I was asked by my friends from Poland to express all the best wishes from Poland. Everyone is supporting you from Poland. So the question from my friends of Polish people, we heard a lot that you are in Warsaw and Russians tried to persuade everyone that you are in Warsaw. Everyone was looking for you in Warsaw, but we are keeping to have this meeting in Kyiv. So question, would you like to come to Warsaw?
Вам по-русски, да?
Okay,
Смотрите,
so
я
should I
уже 60 дней
answer
слышу
to
этот
you in
вопрос. Не
Russian?
хотел бы ли я куда-то поехать?
Look, I kept receiving a lot of questions whether I would like to go somewhere. Like, I don't have a right.
При всем
And
уважении,
honestly
это
speaking,
действительно мое
I don't
большое
want.
уважение Польше,
And
вашим друзьям,
I highly
лидеру
respect
Польши,
Poland, your
людям Польши.
friends. I highly respect
2,5
the
миллиона
president of
принять
Poland and the
наших
people
людей.
of Poland.
Да,
You have
это огромная помощь.
welcomed, you
Это
have extended
особенное
hospitality to
отношение
over
одной
2.5
нации к
million
другой.
of
В сложные
Ukrainians.
моменты,
That is special attention,
сложные
that's a
моменты
special
поступать
attitude
так.
of
Поэтому
helping
Польшу
the
можно
country
только
in
поблагодарить.
the
Они
time of
действительно
difficulties. So I would like to really extend the words of
безопасные и
gratitude
очень
because
дружественные
they
соседи
are
для
truly
Украины.
a
И
very
верю, что
friendly and safe
это будет
neighbors
надолго
of Ukraine,
и
and I'm
всерьез.
sure that this is for
Что
many years
касается,
and for
я
serious.
с
And,
уважением отношусь. Я приезжал к Анджею Дуде, мы с ним встречались и всегда с радостью.
visited Poland many times. I've had meetings with the president, Andrzej Duda. I'm always happy to visit Poland. And I'm not feeling myself as if I'm at home in Poland. I'm sorry for that. I only feel myself at home when I'm in Ukraine. But there's something that makes me feel very willing to go to Poland. That's this friendly attitude of Polish people to Ukraine. So I'm grateful for this support. It was not only the humanitarian support, and since the very beginning we had a very tight relationship with the president of Poland, both from the point of weapons, and he always supported us. Well, of course, a person like that, I cannot just say words of gratitude. I have to say something more, but there is always there is one thing that still raises in the air. There's this issue with the aircraft, but considering what Poland has already done for us, that's nothing, really. I'm sure that until the war is in progress, I simply don't have the right to go to Poland. Republic India, that's in the center, please.
India, mention about the New World Order. Mr. President, do you believe that the world order has changed? In the face of this kind of aggression, do you believe a new alliance of countries is needed?
Just wanted to ask you, like, what is it that you as the president of this country is expecting from the Asian countries? And was there any point in time in the first phase of the war that you felt let down by the Western partners?
Thank you.
Well, thank you for these questions. Now, speaking on the world order or the security infrastructure, I cannot have an impact on the alliance. We are not a member state of NATO, even though I believe that's a major mistake that NATO, over all these years, have not found the time and a place to have Ukraine as a member state. And everyone can see that we would be able to reinforce their capabilities. And everyone can already see that that would have a highly probable impact on Russia for not having this war. And I talked about this with the Secretary General of NATO, and I talked with the leaders of the major European countries. I'm not going to, to name all those countries. We've only started this frank conversation maybe somewhere later, but in NATO, in the alliance, and in the European Union. And I believe that was a strategic mistake made by the alliance with regards to Ukraine. And nobody counted on our resilience and strength. Nobody believed that we will be able to defend for 3 days or more. Some leaders of the European countries were not willing to impose sanctions sanctions because they said there's no sense of imposing sanctions since they will be occupied in 3 days. So that was a mistake. That was a mistake at the level of attitude to this country. But through our unity, through our strength, through the repellment of Russian attacks, we've managed to change the attitude of the European countries, of the alliance, and many others. We've managed to change their attitude to us. And I want the Asian countries, I want them to change their attitude to Ukraine just to say whether I feel that they changed it. No. Whether they've truly changed it. Well, people of those countries have truly changed their attitude. They know us. And I feel that the leaders of those countries are coming close to the change of their position. And historically, they were very close to the Soviet Union. And that's why historically, after the disbandment of the Soviet Union, they remained close to the Russian Federation as the inheritance of the Soviet Union and the largest country of the former Soviet Union. So they had this tight relationship. But Ukraine had them rethink that. And that's a great achievement of our country. But it's already an achievement of their leaders as they're listening to us. And it's a very difficult task. Both the Asian culture and the African culture, they were close to the Soviet Union culture, really. But there is an end to many things, and that's a partial answer to your first question with regards to the global security infrastructure. Now, all the leaders of the countries in Asia and Africa, they can see that not a single country can be allowed to violate the global order. You cannot take the territory of other countries. You cannot impose your own rules on the other countries and on the other continents. This could not be allowed. Now everyone is afraid of that. Now look at the challenge. Look at the challenge to the Asia, to the Arabic country about this blocking of supply of grain, barley, corn from Ukraine. I mean, we were the leading exporter of those the agricultural products. 20 million tons, that's more than enough to support the Ukrainian market. And then there's 90 million of tons. This is something that is not being supplied to the other countries. And in some countries, there will be a deficit. In some countries, there will be a problem with the food supplies. Now, that's why everyone can see that the war in Ukraine, it's not only about Ukraine, but because of blocking the food products from being exported, this is not only a war in Europe, but a war in other continents because of these steps, because of disrespect to all the living. This is a disrespect to the international law and legislation of these countries because of these societies. They make the leaders start to listen. I'm sure that Prime Minister Modi, and I had a meeting with him once, and we had several conversations with him on the environmental forum, and I think I met him in Glasgow, and then we had a number of conversations over the phone, I think 2 conversations, and I truly feel that the people and the leaders, and I believe he is a true leader of the largest democratic country in the world. I believe that they can see that you need to fight for every step. You need to fight for the democracy. Now, Anadolu, in the very end, to the right. Thank you, Mr. President. What do you think? Would there be a chance to continue negotiations in Turkey? Oh, you're from Turkey.
Розмовляєте російською?
And you speak Russian. So, is there a chance that you continue negotiations in Turkey?
Вопрос
Well,
к другому
I
Владимиру.
think it's the question to another Vladimir. I mean, Vladimir with another surname. So if he actually wishes, that Vladimir, if he wishes, everything depends on his wish.
Встреча наших групп, потому что
The
просто
meeting
так
of our groups
встречаться,
depends on his wish. Just
Мы, конечно,
meeting
любим
for the sake of meeting, we
то, чем у
love
нас война, сейчас
Turkey,
не до
but it's war,
отдыха.
and it's not about any kind of recreation or
не для-
entertainment,
не
and
до курорта.
it's definitely not
точно у
about
нас
visiting
нет такого
resorts, and
настроения.
we don't
Вы
have
ж
that kind
бачите,
of mood.
извините, вы же видите, что
I'm
даже
sorry,
перед
you can
Пасхой,
see that even
ну,
we
это
have
большой
Easter
праздник
today, but this is a
Украине.
big religious
Большой
holiday,
семейный
a huge
праздник.
family
Большой человеческий
holiday.
праздник.
It's a humane holiday. It's like a
7 ракет.
humanity holiday. Seven missiles.
Вот такие
Seven.
у нас пасхальные дни, потрясающе.
This is
7
Easter
ракет
time.
сегодня
7 missiles
прилетело
we had today
Одессу.
hitting Odessa. A big
7.
southern city.
2 мы
Hitting
сбили.
Odessa. We hit 2. We
Это к тому,
managed
что
to
от
hit
чего
2.
зависит, от ПВО и так далее.
What does it what does it
Чтобы
depend
вы
from?
понимали, как это
The
всё работает.
air
7
defense
ракет.
system. So
В жи-
7
в жилую-
missiles.
в жилую
Residential area. They hit the residential area. The multi-storied block of apartments. A missile hit it, just imagine it. 8 people right now, right at this specific moment. 8 people died. 18 or 20 injured. A 3-month newborn child died. 3-month child. Just try to grasp it. 3 months
Война
old.
началась, когда этому ребенку месяц был.
When the war started, this
Вы
child was
представляете
a
вообще,
month
что это для
old,
этих...
and this
Что
child
это
died.
вообще
Just
происходит?
realize it,
Подонки
grasp
вонючие.
it.
Как их еще назвать?
Bastards. What I can say,
Других
these are
нет
just
слов.
bloody bastards. I have no other
Просто
words.
подонки.
I'm sorry, but bastards. Pure
Поэтому
bastards. That's what they are.
Предметные
Monsters.
встречи нужны.
We need to
Потому
have
что
these specific
удовольствие
meetings.
Греться на солнце с этими подонками.
There is no
нет.
satisfaction for us to stay there in the
Нет.
sun with these bastards. No, it's not.
Но мы должны
it's not pleasant.
говорить,
But
пока
we
не
have
закончится
to
эта
talk.
война.
We have to
Должны
talk and
говорить.
finish the war.
И
We have to
цепляться
talk
за каждый
till
такой
the very end of the war and
случай, за
grasp
каждую
every chance,
возможность,
catch every
чтобы
chance that we
больше
have.
таких трехмесячных детей не было.
I don't want any other 3-month-old
Просто
dying.
какой-то ужас.
It's horrifying. It's just
И в
something
эти
you
же
can't
дни.
imagine. And
То есть
one
вообще
of
на
these
всё
days, just
наплевать.
they don't care. They
От
they
какого
don't
они?
think of
От
it.
Бога. Про что они говорят?
What do they
Про
talk
какие
about? They talk about
ценности,
God,
какой
they
их
talk about
мир,
values,
русский
about their
мир, какой
Russian world,
христианский мир,
Christian world. I don't know.
Средневековье.
It's
Просто
purely
сил нет.
medieval. It's
Просто
just
7 ракет на Одессу.
7 missiles for one
Их
city.
любимую Одессу.
Their
Как они
favorite
говорят,
Odessa.
Одесса
Russians
мама
say
их
they love Odessa.
любимая,
They
куда
call
они
Odessa
любили
mama,
приезжать.
Odessa mother.
У вас
Like
так вкусно готовят.
they
они
say, you
говорят.
have wonderful cuisine in Odessa. We love to visit your city. They just want to have some food there. And that's it.
Давайте далі, будь ласка.
Okay, let's move. I don't know how to spell it. Infobaya, Argentina. So the central aisle, 5th row, 6th.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. I am Roman Lechman from Infobaya. Have you talked with Pope Francis, and what do you think about his role in the conflict? Thank you, Mr. President.
Дуже дякую.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ми вдячні.
We are
В цілому Ватикані, ви
grateful
знаєте,
in
що
general. We are
коли
grateful to
Поп-
Vatican. You
коли
know,
Папа, коли Франциск,
when
і коли він звертається
Pope Francis
з
actually
молитвами, і завжди
prays and gives
тих чи інших заходах,
statements, and
і
everywhere
не
he
тільки в
announces, and
святкові
he
дні,
not
а в
just
різні моменти
during
життя
the
він підтримує Україну.
special days.
Він
During the
засуджує
holidays, he always
російську
condemns
агресію.
Russian
І
Russian
я йому
aggression.
вдячний за цю
He stands against it,
позицію.
and I'm
Я зустрічався
so
з
grateful
ним
for this position. I met
особисто.
him personally.
Ми з ним говорили
We had
в той час.
these talks
У
with
мене була
him,
можливість
and
йому
at that moment I
розповісти
had
одну історію.
a
Вона
chance
була
to tell him
про
one
нашого
story. It
військового,
was a
про
story about one of
Марківа.
our military
І він допомагав, як міг,
officers.
і міг,
It
і
was
ми
Markiv. He
повернули
helped
нашого
us, and we
військового.
brought
Тому що
our
треба боротися за кожну людину. Принаймні, це мої
soldier back.
правила
We
життя.
have to fight for each person. This is
І
my rule,
зараз
my personal rule of life. This is my motto.
Я дуже
Fight
хотів,
for
щоб він
everyone.
приїхав.
And I really wanted
І з
him to
самого
come
початку, щоб
from the very
щоб він
beginning. I
підтримав
just wanted him to support
наших людей на
our
сході
people
держави. Я хотів, щоб
in eastern
він
regions. I really wanted him to try
спробував розблокувати
to
гуманітарні
deblock
коридори
the
до
humanitarian
Маріуполя. Саме з
corridors
таким
to
проханням ми
Mariupol.
звертались до
That
нього.
was the request
І
that we gave him. We just
є ті
wanted
чи
him to
інші
help us.
сигнали
and certain signals are there, but it's still early to say, but we expect to get him. We expect, of course, he has the mission. He has the mission from the God. He has a trust. He's entrusted by so many people. And I think it's important, I'm just sorry for using this word towards Vatican, but Ukraine has no choice. We have war. So we have to use, I'm sorry again for this word, I apologize, but we have to use.
Завдяки миру можемо дозволити собі. Тому нам треба
We have to
використовувати
use everything we
будь-яку
can
таку
use.
поважну
We have
людину,
to
яка має
use and
вплив
involve
щодо припинення війни,
any respectable and any high position person. We just need to get at least the ceasefire, the ceasefire, the actual ceasefire, stable ceasefire.
на півдні нашої держави і на сході, хоча б для того, щоб обміняти людей.
Just to ensure that exchange of people is taking place. So we refer to everyone, to Vatican as well.
Дякую. Телеканал Рада.
Thank you. Rada channel in the right. Okay. So good evening, Mr. Zelenskyy. So we very carefully observe what the government is doing, and you announced that you created a national council, established a national council on Ukraine's refusal. What are the functions and authorities are there within this entity? Do you have any kind of list of people who will become the members of this national council? Representatives of government or the presidential office, who those will be. Thank you for the question. So it's a newly established entity, newly established institution, this council, and we have a list already of government representatives, also people from the office. Yes, I think this is not an exhaustive list. It will be extended. Why? Regarding the restoration and recovery of the country, the Ukrainian recovery program itself, it's established by us. I gave the details to European Union authorities about this program. Ursula von der Leyen supports this program completely. Charles Michel supports it as well. I'll just tell about relations and later about the content. Apart from that, we also initiated these bilateral negotiations on Ukrainian recovery with the leaders of other countries like the Great Britain, Sweden, Spain, a couple of others. For example, the Great Britain already confirmed the support provided for this program. Also, Sweden said yes to involved. This is a separate leadership, this is a program to ensure the leadership for a specific region. For Ukrainian budget, it's impossible to help any city or region recover. I just really want our partners to help us to restore the country. But it's not just an issue of funds. You know, it's not just about money. It's about the patronage, taking care of like any town or city. So what is patronage? What do I mean? What is this format about? It's not about just providing money, but providing experts. For example, we're interested in finance experts, architects, artists. Like, there are so many professions and so many people who will come to Ukraine and help us to rebuild. And each country will get its own region. Like, for example, with the Great Britain, we've actually, with Mr. Johnson, he agreed actually to become a patron of the Kyiv region, let's say in his country. With Sweden, we also negotiated. They would take Mykolaiv and Mykolaiv region to take care of, and step by step, we will actually distribute it. So, as my colleague said, and colleagues from European Union, it's a very smart idea, they said. Why? Because we decided, it would be better to say people decided, and we just have to implement this. Ukraine is paving the way to European Union membership, and I do think that this way will do it faster if European Union countries will be united or joined under this umbrella, under this project. You know, each country will get an opportunity to help any region recover, and they will get the feeling of doing something truly important, helping the state to rebuild. And this will be a contribution in Ukrainian victory as well. And this will be a great contribution
в цілому
to
на
the victory of
європейському
democracy
континенті.
at European
Поки що це
continent.
виглядає так.
So far it looks
Окремо
like this,
деталі,
and
які
some
гроші,
specific
які
details about
плани,
the funds,
кожен
the
регіон буде
plans.
представляти
Each region
плани,
will present
плани
a
міста,
plan,
плани
a plan for
області.
city and a plan
І-
for the
І
region.
буде, я думаю, що
And I do
у
think
цього проекта
that this
велике
project
майбутнє.
does have a great future.
І я думаю, що ми
And I
всі
do
будемо
think that
приймати
all of us
участь
will
в такому
definitely take
проєкті.
part in that project. We
Треба
will
тільки знайти
be the
слово
participants.
якесь
We just
своє.
need to find our
Не
own like
суботник.
words. Well,
Я
it's
просто
not be
думаю,
like
як після
I don't know how to
роботи
call it.
допомагати тому чи іншому
After,
місту.
after when you finish your work, how you can start helping your city.
Прекрасно.
Okay, let's like the big cleaning,
Далі, да.
a big recovery.
Будь ласка,
Okay.
Антенна ТВ, якщо я правильно
Antenna
вимовляю,
TV,
да,
if I do
Греція, в
pronounce
самому
it
кінці.
Greece, in the very, very rare. Okay, right part of the row.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Christos Mazanidis from Antenna Television Greece. The recent Commander General Rastam Minakayev, if I said that right, told the defense industry meeting that Russia was seeking to win control of a swatch of territory extending to Moldova, Ukraine's southern neighbor. That would cut off Ukraine's access to the Black Sea. What is your understanding? And secondly, I want to ask you, according to the Ukrainian Foreign Ministry, Russian forces have illegally removed thousands of Ukrainian children from Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts to Russia. Do you have any number to give us and more information about this? Thank you.
Дуже дякую. На жаль, цифри
Thank you so much. Unfortunately,
ті, що
the
ми
figures
маємо,
are tragic.
хоча одразу
The statistics is
хочу
horrible.
вибачитись, якщо
I
вони
just
будуть
want to
некоректні,
apologize if
а
these are
вони
not correct, and
точно
these
не
can't
зовсім коректні,
be correct.
тому
They
що
simply can't
щодо
be
людей,
correct
які
because
загинули,
regarding people
які
who
люди
unfortunately died,
закатовані в
we
підвалах,
also have people who were tortured in the basements
і люди, які
and
поховані,
people buried.
і вивезені.
And
Точних
also we
цифр
have
на
people
сьогодні
who
вам
are deported.
ніхто не
Nobody
дасть.
will give you the
Те,
exact
що ми
figure.
маємо,
No one.
приблизно,
What we
ми
have is
вважаємо, що
we
біля
consider this to be
півмільйона
approximately
людей
500,000
було
of people
вивезено
were
з
deported
різних
from
окупованих
various
частей
occupied
нашої
parts
держави
of our
на
country
територію Російської
to the territory
Федерації
of Russian
або
Federation
частково на
or
територію
partially
окупованого
to occupied
Донецька,
East, let's
Луганська
call it.
тощо.
Occupied
Півмільйона.
parts of
Ми
Donetsk and
вважаємо,
Luhansk
що
regions,
цифри
500,000.
саме такі.
We
Що
consider this
стосується
to be
дітей,
the figure.
цифри
Concerning
немає.
children, we don't have
Пам'ятаю тільки
the
одне,
number.
що
I just remember
Ірану
one
десь біля
thing.
5,000,
Irina, how many,
так
like
говорили, да? Саме такі
5,000
цифри.
approximately.
5,000 – це цифри, які ми
5,000.
мали десь, я
It's
думаю,
something that
тиждень
we had,
тому.
a
Які
week
зараз
ago.
цифри, не можу вам
I
сказати.
can't tell you the
Я не
figure
впевнений, що це точно
as of this
цифри.
day. I can't
їх
tell you if
точно
this
не
is
менше.
correct. Not
Трагічність
fewer than
моєї
5,000.
невпевненості
Why is it so
саме в
tragic?
тому,
Why
що
my
цифра ця
uncertainty is
може
tragic?
бути
This can
або така,
we can
як я
have
сказав,
more.
або
We can have
більше.
5,000 or more, unfortunately.
А перша частина вашого
And the
запитання я
second
забув
part,
просто.
I just forgot.
Я не пам'ятаю. Да, вони заявляли, я згадав.
Yes, yes,
все.
they
Дякую,
claimed,
да.
yeah, they claimed.
Да, я згадував, щоденно
I remember
є
they
ті
claim
чи інші
every day
сигнали з
we
російського
have
боку,
signals,
чи з
we get
російського
signals from
військового
Russia, from
лідерства
Russian
щодо
military
захоплення
leadership
чи щодо
about
бажаного захоплення
capturing,
тих
about
чи
their wish
інших
to
територій.
capture
Ми чули про
certain
це
territory. We
багато
heard about
разів.
it for
Думаю,
so many
такі
times,
ризики,
and
про що вони сказали,
the
вони є.
risks,
З точки
yes,
зору
these
їх
risks exist.
бажання. Що
Yes,
стосується
they have the wish.
результату,
Concerning the
подивимось, точно
result, we
будемо
will see.
захищати
We will
нашу
definitely try to protect our territory, and we will protect
Ласета,
it.
якщо я правильно вимовляю, Італія
Lasetta,
по
if I
перший
pronounce
другий
it,
ряд.
Italy, first or second row.
Dякую, Mr. President. Claudio Locatelli, Italy. So, in 2 days, in Italy will be the National Day of Resistance, remembering the historical resistance of partisans against the Nazi fascists. Some people think it's not comparable. Some others think it's actually your resistance, the Ukrainian people resistance, is the nowadays resistance. Moreover, some people believe that in order to protect your citizen, you should give up, despite of the invasion of Russia. What is your answer to those people? Thank you.
Дуже дякую.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Українці не здаються.
Ukrainians don't give up.
Ми точно не здамося.
We
Мені
won't.
здається, що ми це
I
довели
think that we've
не
already
порожніми
managed to
словами
prove it, not
чи
just with
закликами,
words, or, statements, whatever. We proved it with every single day, every single step, every pain we live, every fight we have against Russian Federation. This is pure, they are Nazi. They killed, they tortured, everything they did to children, you know it. Little children, toddlers, violence against children, children abuse, rapes, everything that happened. It's not just a manifestation. They are Nazi. And historically, their state, in the books in history, they will have the words that nobody invented. People just repeat it in Ukraine and in Europe. It's called racism or racists. Racists. Like fascists, like Nazis, but racists. This is a new word. This is a new word. Meaning, these are Russian Nazi because they behave the same like Nazi did 80 years ago. Within these 80 years, if we do analyze it, if you actually try to look at the continent, what was happening, such barbaric behavior, it never happened. Racism, as we say, this will be there in history books, in Wikipedias or something. This will be carved in stone. This will be something that little children sitting in schools, they will learn, and they will give answers to their teachers what the racism is, when it started, in what country, and who won their freedom back, and who fought against this horrible thing. Thank you.
Al Jazeera English.
Al Jazeera English, so the central aisle, please.
President, Hud Abdel Hamid from Al Jazeera English. We've been talking about the war in the East. Russia now is saying it has territorial ambitions all the way to Transnistria. I know you're satisfied with the military aid you're getting, but this is a huge area of operation for militarily speaking. Are you confident that you can tackle that you can avoid another Mariupol somewhere else where civilians and military are besieged? And are you able to also protect Odessa, which is so important for you and for the world because of the global food supplies? And then my second question is about war crimes. I know you talked very strongly about all what's been happening, and one can see that you're very affected of it. What kind of tribunal would you like? Would you like a special tribunal for Ukraine, or would you like to go through The Hague? What kind of mechanism do you see there?
I don't care how we will call the tribunal. I don't care about the name. I really want to get the result. And all of us, the citizens, we want to get the result. So it doesn't matter if it's Hague, or is it Ukraine, or if this is like any other process. Frankly, it's not the name. It's just about the years and people. How many people will get, how many of these people will get a specific number of years of imprisonment? That's what we care of, It's about the second question. Frankly, our prosecutor general's office, they work with our European partners. They have very tight cooperation. They have investigative groups, joint groups, and we have some joint processes. I do think there will be an international tribunal. I consider, and we consider, that the result will be there. The process is ongoing. I can see a huge support in this area. And the prosecutor Han actually visited us, and so many other French experts. Recently, they visited us. I had a meeting with Mr. Sanchez. With the Spanish Prime Minister, and their specialists actually are involved. And so many European countries will be invited to take, but everyone wants to punish the criminals. Everybody knows who are the criminals. Regarding the Transnistria, so regarding Moldova,
І чи може статися трагедія така сама, як в Маріуполі?
God forbid, have the same tragedy like in Mariupol? Yes, it may happen.
Тисячі танків, тисячі
Thousands of
броньованої
tanks,
техніки,
thousands of APVs,
складна ситуація,
a complicated situation,
накопичення з боку Російської
accumulation
Федерації навколо наших
of
кордонів,
Russian
вже на
armament
нашій
around the borders
території.
at
Так,
our
вони хочуть
territory. Yes,
проробити
they
такий
want
коридор,
to
вони хочуть
make this
проробити
corridor. They
коридор
want
і
to
мати питну
just
воду до Криму. Вони
get some
мають
fresh
вже
water
її.
for the Crimea. They
Вони
already
вже
have
зайняли
it.
всі
They
ці
already took
території.
all the
Хоча ще
territories,
води немає, не
but
так
they
все
don't have
просто.
water. It's not
Коридору
that
замало.
simple. It's not
Там
just
ще
about getting
декілька
a
кроків
corridor.
треба
You just need
їм
to have a couple of
зробити.
more
Так,
steps to be
всі
made.
ці
Yeah,
ризики
all
є.
these risks are there.
Я не вірю, що ці
These are not
люди
vague, but
будуть
I don't believe these people will
Якщо
stop.
ми їх будемо зупиняти,
we stop
тоді перемовини будуть.
Then
Якщо ми
have
зможемо зміцнити
negotiations.
свої
If we manage to
позиції,
strengthen our
тоді
positions,
зміцниться
then
моя позиція
my
на
position will
перемовинах.
strengthen in the negotiation process.
Але ще раз вам
But
говорю,
again, I just want to say one thing.
не можна
You can't
силою.
use power.
Я вважаю, що ми це довели. Не можна
I consider we proved
силою
it.
і такою
You can't
безлюдністю
use force and
перемогти нашу
inhumanity
державу.
to win in
Неможливо.
Ukraine. You can't
Що
win.
вони з
You
нею
can't.
будуть робити
Just
потім?
what will you do with Ukraine
Що
then?
вони будуть робити?
What? Why do you need it for
Що
after
вони
this?
могли зробити в Київській області?
What could they do
Всі
in
люди їх
Kyiv region?
ненавидять.
People hate
Що?
them. All
Ну,
of them.
фашисти,
What could they do?
нацисти в свій час
Fascists. No, Nazi.
вони повністю
What they did
окупували Європу.
80 years ago, they
І
occupied
що?
Europe. And
Що вони
what?
зробили? Чого
What
вони досягли?
did they do? What they
Навіть
managed
в
to
той
achieve?
момент, коли
Even
вони
at that moment,
попивали
when they were
шампанське
just drinking
у французьких
champagne in
ресторанах.
French
Що
restaurants,
вони
wherever.
змогли?
What
Люди їх
did they
полюбили?
do? People loved
Ні.
them. Not at all. They
Вони
didn't.
багатші стали?
They
Ні.
actually they became richer.
Хоча обікрали
No,
всю
yes,
Європу і
they
вивозили
stole a
всі
lot.
твори
They
мистецтва,
took, you
тощо
know,
багато.
everything
Чого?
from
Чого
museums,
вони?
from palaces, whatever. What did they
Вони
achieve?
досягли одного, що всі ці покоління,
All they've achieved is that
Німеччини,
many
молоді
generations
люди,
in Germany, the
які
young people
не
in
при чому до
Germany,
цього
who
всього,
have nothing to do
сьогодні вони
with
завжди відчувають,
those
що
events,
вони
they feel,
всі
they
історично
always feel
мають
that
вину, мають цю провину.
historically they
Ось чого
have
ти можеш
some
досягти.
sort of guilt. This is the thing
Тому
that
я
you
не
can
розумію,
achieve.
для чого.
That is why I don't
Ще
understand
один
the reason.
коридор, ще
Why do
одна
you need
країна.
yet another
Забрали
corridor,
вони
yet another
Придністров'я,
country? They've
забрали,
taken
вони забрали
Transnistria.
Абхазію, забрали
They've
Донбас.
taken
Там
Abkhazia.
що,
That-
Гонконг?
Is there
Там
Hong
Дубай?
Kong over there? Is there
Там
Dubai over
що?
there? I don't know.
Що
What's
там?
the
Яка там
reason?
цивілізація? Скажіть
What's so
мені, хто там
tractable?
щасливий?
Who's happy in those territories?
Будь ласка, Dark Blooded, якщо я
Dark
правильно вимовляю.
Blooded, if I pronounce that
Шведська
correctly,
по центру.
from
Dark
Sweden,
Blooded, да?
by
Правильно?
the central aisle.
По центру праворуч.
By the central aisle to the right. So please.
Thank you very much, President. You mentioned before with the rebuilding, in your speech to the Swedish Parliament, you reached out specifically to Sweden to be part of this, first of all, and I just wondered why Sweden in this? And the second one, given Sweden's status as a non-NATO country, do you ask something specifically from Sweden right now? And the third one, in your speech to the Parliament, you compared our flags, saying it is not coincidence but destiny that they have the same color. How do you see future relations between Ukraine and Sweden? Thank you.
Я вважаю, що у нас дуже
I
непогані
believe that
відносини.
we have a
Я
a
вдячний
fairly
Швеції,
good
вона дійсно
relationship, and
допомагає.
I'm grateful to Sweden as they do support, they do provide us with assistance,
Не тільки гуманітарно,
not only
і дійсно
through
допомагає.
humanitarian assistance, they
Ми
truly
готові
support us. I'm
обговорювати всі
not
деталі.
ready to discuss all the details at this
У
point.
нас чому Швеція? Ми
Why
звернулися до всіх
Sweden?
держав.
We
Ви
called
просто так запитали,
upon
а
many
чому саме Швеція?
countries.
Ви
You've
не
asked
хочете?
why Sweden? Don't you want to join the rebuilding
Швеції
process?
гарні відносини і всім
Look,
країнам,
we do
яким
have
ми
a
будемо
good
пропонувати.
relationship
Це не
with
про допомогу,
with Sweden,
наприклад,
and
нашої країни, нашій.
it's not
Це
about
про
the assistance of
спільне
your country to
майбутнє. Як я і
Ukraine. It's
сказав,
about
що це
joint
частина,
future. As I've said,
програми,
this is a part of
щодо
a
нашого
big
членства в
program
Європейському Союзі. Це
that has to
частина
do with
нашого
our
майбутнього
membership in the European Union.
і
That's
історії
our future in the
перемоги в цій
joint
війні. І саме тому ми
well,
звертаємось до країн,
victory.
які
And that
поважаємо.
is why
І саме тому
we
звертались
are
до
calling
Швеції.
upon those countries whom we truly
Щодо
trust
допомоги
and
окремої,
respect.
щодо
And that's why we've
озброєння тощо,
asked to Sweden.
не хочу говорити просто деталі,
Speaking on the
хочу
other
тільки
types of
сказати,
assistance
ми
and support,
очікуємо
I don't want to
допомоги,
go
і вона
into
точно буде,
details. We're
і я
expecting
вдячний
the
за неї,
support,
я
and it
розумію,
will
про
arrive,
що я
and I'm
говорю.
grateful for that, and I know what I'm talking about.
Будь ласка, CBS,
Now
праворуч біля
CBS
колон.
to the right by the column,
По центру.
close to the central aisle.
Thank you, Mr. President. Chris Lipsey, CBS News. You've said that the Russian people need to learn their history and be made aware of how much they've made their neighbors suffer. How are they supposed to do that so long as Vladimir Putin is their president? And my second question is, how are you holding up personally?
Як людям,
Well,
будь-яка людина, яка хоче знати правду, вона
any
її
person
знайде.
who's willing to
Людина,
learn the
яка хоче
truth, they will
зрозуміти,
find
що
this
відбувається
truth.
навколо
People
світу, не
who want to
ховатись.
understand what's
Вона
happening around
знайде
their
всі
country,
ці
what's happening
відповіді.
in the world,
Ми це
this
знаємо.
person
Ми розвиваємось завжди,
can't find
коли ми
this information.
читаємо,
We
коли ми
are
вивчаємо,
developing
коли
whenever
ми
we are
шукаємо,
reading something,
коли
whenever
ми,
we are
коротше
learning something,
говорячи,
whenever we're
коли
searching
ми не
for
сидимо,
something.
розплющив
Well, let's
очі
say
тільки в
whenever we are
телебачення
not
російської
sitting
пропаганди,
on the sofa
а
and
потім,
just
коли
listening or
виключаємо,
watching to the
вмикаємо
TV
ці
or Russian
телевізори, виходимо
propaganda.
на
And
вулицю,
then when we switch
ми
on the TV,
заплющуємо ці
when we
очі. І так ми живемо
go
з заплющеними
outside,
очима,
and
ходимо
we
на
have
роботу,
our
ходимо по
eyes
території
closed, and
Росії,
whenever
того
we
чи
go
іншого
to
міста,
work, whenever
і
we are
розкриваємо
visiting any
очі
country or
тільки
any
і
city
вуха, і хочемо чути і
Russia,
бачити
whenever we
тільки,
can
коли
only
показують по
see
телевізору
and
те, що ми
only
хочемо чути і
hear
бачимо.
to
Так
what
не
is
вийде. Так не можна
provided on TV. This is not
просто
the right
розірвати
option.
цю інформаційну
can't break
бомбу.
this
Просто це
information
неможливо
bubble.
пробитись через це. З
can't
одного
break
боку, з
through
нашого
that
боку, з нашої
bubble
сторони, ми не
only from
можемо
our
стільки
side. I mean,
ми повинні йти назустріч один одному.
we have
І є
to
в російському
go
суспільстві такі люди. Їх
towards one
повинно
another.
становитись
There are
все більше
people in
і
the
ставатися
Russian
більше
society
і
who are
більше. І
willing to
вони,
have more
якщо вони
information,
хочуть
and there should be
дізнатися,
more and more
вони
of those
повинні
people. And if
прийняти
they're willing to learn
правду.
the true information, they
А
have
вона
to
є.
accept
Вони
that
знають, що вони
truth. And
живуть,
there is
і у
this
них
truth.
у
They
них на
know
вулицях їх міста
that
нікого не вбивають. Вони це
nobody's
бачать.
been
Вони
killed on
повинні
the
це
streets of their cities. They can see that.
сприйняти, що
They
вони
have to
винні, їх
understand
влада.
that they're guilty.
Вони обирали цю владу.
Their authorities are guilty.
Не
They've
можна сказати, я не
elected
при чому.
their authorities. They can't say that
Можна
I have
сказати,
nothing
що
to do
наша
with that.
держава винна.
Our
Можна
country
сказати, що я не
is
можу нічого
guilty. They
зробити,
can't
окрім
say
цих слів.
that
Я
they can't do
відчуваю
anything
себе
except for these words. And
громадянином
I
Росії. Я
feel
відчуваю, що
myself
ми за
as
це
the
будемо
Russian
відповідати.
citizen,
І
and
ми
I
несемо
feel that we
відповідальність. І
will
це дуже
be
багато.
responsible for that, that we take
Це
responsibility
дуже
for that.
багато
And that's
визнати.
already
Це
an
і
important
є
step. They have to
сміливість. Це і
recognize
є
this. That
міцність
this is the
людини.
bravery, this is the
Незважаючи, що
integrity
там
of a
тобі
person.
кидають в спину,
Despite
слова
whatever is
або
thrown at your
каміння.
back, either the words
Не
or
треба
the
цього
stones,
боятися.
you don't have to be afraid
Мені
of.
здається, це
And I
важливий
think
крок.
that's
І
an
він
important
називається
step to be
двома
made.
словами
And there's two
бажання
words to
людей.
describe it. The willingness of
Бажання.
people.
Тому відповідаючи на ваше
So
запитання, коли
answering your
їх
question,
люди
when
захотять,
their people would
захочуть
be
просто знати правду,
willing to learn
а
the
значить
truth,
вийти з цієї комп'ютерної гри
and it moves
в життя в
to
Російській Федерації.
exit
Це
that
комп'ютерна
computer game.
гра, це
I
віртуальність.
mean, living in Russia, it's like a
Віртуальна
computer
реальність,
game.
абсолютно.
It's a virtual
Вийти.
reality.
Просто
So when they
вийти.
press exit,
Зняти ці
when they
3D-окуляри
will remove those 3D glasses
трьох кольорів. Просто
with three
зняти їх.
colors,
Повернутись в
take it
реальність,
away,
в
when
цивілізований
they will
світ. Він
go
прекрасний.
to reality, to the civilized
Він
world, it's beautiful,
прекрасний.
it's marvelous.
Він набагато ширше,
It's
красивіший,
much
тому що
wider,
він
it's much more
правдивий
beautiful
і
because
чесний.
it's truthful.
Не обов'язково бути лідером
You shouldn't be
в ядерній
like a
зброї.
leader in
Можна бути
nuclear
лідером серед
weapons. You can
країн, у
become
яких
a
більше
leader
всього
among the
айтішників.
countries with
Не
most
обов'язково
of
запустити
IT
ракету,
experts. You don't
замість того,
need
щоб
to
дати
launch a
заробітні плати
missile.
вчителям.
Instead, you can pay salary to
напевно,
teachers.
працювати і знайти ліки від
You
раку.
can work, you can
Є
find a
куди
medicine for
витратити
cancer.
ці гроші і
There are
потенціал,
more areas where
тому
you
що там
can
талановиті
spend
люди.
your
Ми
money,
прекрасно
your
знаємо
potential. We know that
історію,
they
ми
have
прекрасно
talented
знаємо,
people.
там
We
є
know the
науковці,
history.
є
They
історичні,
have the
історична є
scientists and
науковці,
historically there
математики
are
тощо.
scientists, there are mathematicians, many
Тому є
others.
на що витрачати
So
цей
there
мозок
is
цих
what to
людей.
spend those brains for.
Є. Витрачати
Those
в
the
нормальному
intellect
сенсі.
for. I mean,
Нехай не ображаються.
using in normal sense,
Тому що на нашій
no
території
offense,
вони саме
because on
витрачають
our
людей,
territory they
кидають
are
їх.
losing their
Як?
people. They're just losing them.
Давайте далі.
Let's continue.
Давайте когось із
Let's have
українців.
someone
Телеграф
from
бачу.
Ukraine,
Так,
Telegraph,
по центру зали,
and the
ліворуч.
central aisle to the left, please. Greetings, President. The Telegraph publication. The Russian oligarch Abramovich has visited Kyiv twice, according to mass media, and he met our representatives. Did you had a meeting with him, and has he have any role in negotiations?
Наскільки мені відомо,
Well,
а
according
мені
to my
відомо немало,
information, and I have a lot of information,
він входить в склад
he
російської
is
групи
a
перемоги.
part of the Russian negotiating team.
Наскільки мені відомо,
And according to
він
my
був
information,
в Києві.
he was in Kyiv,
Формат його
and the
зустрічі
format
я не
of
готовий
his meetings,
обговорювати.
this is something that I'm not ready to discuss right now.
Дякую,
Thank
будь
you.
ласка. Jewish
Now,
Chronicle.
Jewish
Ось
Chronicle,
третій ряд. Так.
this third row, please.
Aha, I see, yeah. Hi, John Sweeney from the Jewish Chronicle and Taking on Putin podcast. We've all seen and admired Ukraine's heroic fights against what we've just got to call Russian fascism. But President Zelenskyy, what's your message to the Russian opposition, to the teenagers who go and make demonstrations and get beaten up by the Russian police in Moscow, by the man who took a copy of War and Peace and stood by the Kiev monuments in Red Square, and to Alexei Navalny? What's your message to the good people of Russia who are trying to oppose Vladimir Putin?
Дуже дякую.
Thank
Для нас
you.
дуже важливий
It's
сигнал всім
important
людям, які
to
протистоять на
send
всіх територіях
all the
всіх
signal
держав.
to those
І
people who
Росія не
are
виключення. Саме до
opposing
тих людей, які в Росії,
the
їм ще
war.
складніше,
And,
ніж деяких
I
європейських держав
absolutely
вийти на
confident
площу,
that
тому що на
people
площі
in Moscow,
тієї
it's
чи іншої
or in
цивілізованої
Russia, it's
держави
very difficult for
тобі
them to
нічого
go
не
on the
погрожує.
street.
Ця
Because
велика
whenever you're
підтримка
going on
для
the
нас
street in any
важлива,
European
але ти
countries,
точно
you
будеш
shouldn't be afraid
жити
of
за
anything, because
законом.
you will
знаєш,
live by
поки
the
ти не
law,
порушив закон,
and
ти будеш
unless
на
you are
свободі.
violating the law, you
І
will
тому що ти
remain
розумієш, що
a
всі рівні
free
перед
person,
законом.
nobody
Щодо
will detain
людей,
you, because
які
you know
виходять
that
на
everyone is equal
вулиці,
by the law,
площі,
and
в
all
Російській
those people
Федерації
going
їх
on those
небагато.
streets and squares, there's
На жаль,
not many people
небагато.
In
Але
Russia
своїми
going
прикладами
out on those
вони
streets and
додають
squares,
все-таки
but
енергію в те,
by
що ми
those examples, they
все-таки
add up
вони,
the
і
energy.
ми проб'ємо цю інформаційну,
And they let
інформаційну
us
стіну, про
believe that
яку
we
ми
will
вже
be
сьогодні
able at
не
certain
одного
point
разу
to break through that information bubble that
Тому
we've recalled today
я їм
several
можу
times.
подякувати. Я
So
хочу сказати,
I
що всі
can
їх кроки
say
ми бачимо.
the words of
Всі
gratitude to
слова
them, because we can see
важливі.
their
І
words,
якщо
we
щось
can see
може
their
пробити ту
actions,
стіну,
and if
це саме
anything
такі
can
слова.
break
Слова
through that
набагато
information bubble, that's the
больніші
words,
б'ють.
because
І
the words
тому ці
hit
люди за
hard,
ґратами.
and that's why those people
Вони
are behind
сильніші
the
за
bars.
кулі. Такі слова, такі
the words
виходи на вулиці,
are just
ці
as
кроки
powerful
сильніші,
as bullets.
тому що якщо вони були слабкіші за зброю,
If they would
то
be
їх би не
weaker
забирали
than
за
the
ґрати.
weapons, they
Їх
wouldn't be
бояться.
imprisoned.
Їх бояться. Уявіть
People are
собі,
being
ядерна
afraid
держава
of.
боїться
Look, just
саме
imagine,
свого ж
a country with
народу, який
nuclear
виходить
weapons
навіть
is
поодинокі
afraid
виходи
of
на вулицю.
their
Тому
people
ми підтримуємо таких людей. Ми
coming
їм
on the
дуже
streets. That's
вдячні.
why we're
Я можу
supporting
їм
those people.
побажати
We're grateful to
в тій
those people.
ситуації.
And I can wish them
Я можу їм побажати тільки здоров'я,
only
тому
health.
що я розумію, що з такими
Because
людьми
I
роблять там за
understand
ґратами. Тому я їм
what,
бажаю відверто
the police or the
здоров'я
law
і
enforcement are
знати,
doing
що
to
вони не
them.
просто так це зробили. Вони
and,
свій вклад
they've
щодо
made
спасіння
their own
історії Російської
contribution
Федерації,
in
вони
the
точно свій
savior
вклад
of the
зробили.
history of Russia. They've made a contribution in that.
Я знаю, що багато японських
I
журналістів
know that
тут є.
there are a
Хотілося
lot
б
of
почути від них запитання,
journalists
якщо
from
є з
Japan.
Японії журналісти.
So now I'd like to
бачу жодної
have,
таблички.
if there are any journalists from Japan.
Так, Nikkei Азія, да, от бачу
Okay.
тепер, будь ласка, да, ваше
Nikkei
запитання.
Asia, please. Now I can see you. You have a chance to ask your question.
It's about risk of Putin using a nuke. You, in some interview, talk about we have to prepare for the worst case scenario Putin used to nuke. What do you think, in what circumstance he's tempted to use nuke? Something like Ukraine repel more Russian occupation, he's cornered, then he's likely to use nuke. And second question is, some kind of concern is because of this war, a lot of country might tempted to have nuclear weapon. What do you think, what if Ukraine didn't give up nuke at the Budapest memorandum? Do you think this war didn't happen? Do you regret it about it?
Давайте так, почнемо розбиратись з вашим питанням
Let's
детально
have
і покроково.
a detailed
Перше,
analysis of your question.
я
Let's
не
go step by
вважаю,
step.
що на
First of all,
сьогодні у
I
світі
don't believe that
адекватна людина може
anyone
використати ядерну зброю.
who's truly an adequate
Я вважаю, що
person
це
can
може
use a
бути
nuclear
використання
weapon.
тієї чи
I
іншої
think
людиною, не коли вона загнана в
it's
кут,
not that
а коли
when the
вона
person is cornered,
втратила
but
зв'язок з реальністю,
when the person has no
зі здоровим глуздом. Я вважаю,
relation to
по-іншому
reality,
використання
when the person
ядерної
is not
зброї
in
не
sound
можна.
mind. Otherwise,
Я
you
не вважаю,
cannot
що це
justify
випадковість.
the use of nuclear weapons.
І
And
тому, якщо
if
керівництво Російської
the
Федерації
leadership
не
of
втратить
Russian
повністю
Federation
зв'язок з реальністю і
or still
адекватність,
have at
вони
least
не
some sort
зможуть
of
і
connection
не
to
будуть
reality,
використовувати
they will
ядерну
not
зброю. У
use
моїй
the
відповіді
nuclear
є
weapons.
відповідь
Now,
на
my-
ваше питання,
This is also an
щодо
answer to another
чи
part of
може
your
це
question,
бути
whether
з боку Російської
is
Федерації.
this something that can happen on the part of Russian Federation? It can. It
Чи
can
вірю я
happen.
в це?
Whether I
Вірити в
believe
такі
in
речі
that,
не хочеться.
well, it's
Скажу вам відверто.
not that I would really like to believe in things like
І
that.
також ви бачите
But
мою реакцію
you
щодо
can see
вашої
my
другої частини вашого
response
питання.
to the second
Я
part of
думаю, ви
your
розумієте,
question.
якщо б у нас була
Sure you
ядерна
understand. If we
зброя,
would have a nuclear
Україна
weapons,
її би ніколи б не
of course
використовувала.
Ukraine would never use
Це
this.
неможливо.
This is something
Тому що
that is
ми
utterly impossible
абсолютно
because
адекватні люди.
we are an adequate
Будь-якого
people.
керівника
Any
нашої
leader
держави,
of our
який би
country
подумав,
who would
почав
be
так пальчиком
even
тягнувся до
starting to think like
його
that.
б знесла наша держава,
I mean, our
наше
people would
суспільство.
crush him immediately. Our
Я був би
society
першим серед тих
would,
людей, які
would crush him. I would be the
просто
first
знести таку
one
людину.
among others to
Єдине,
run against
що
that
є
person.
несправедливим
The
в тому,
only
що так як ці люди,
thing
про
which
яких ви
is
кажете,
unjust
що вони в
is
принципі глибоко в душі спроможні зробити
people,
такі нелюдські кроки,
somewhere deep in their
то
soul,
вони
if
думають,
they're
що
considering
і
they're
інші
capable
можуть
of doing
таке
things
зробити.
like that, then
Тому якщо б у
there
нас
are
була
people who think
ядерна
that
зброя,
there could be others who
я
would be
думаю,
doing
що
things like that.
ризики щодо
So I
початку
think if we would
війни
have
з боку
nuclear
Росії
weapons, then I think the
були б
risks of
мінімізовані.
any aggression on the
Я
part
так
of Russia
вважаю.
would be reduced to minimum. That's what I believe. That's it.
NBC, будь ласка,
Now
по центру
NBC
зали,
at this
біля проходу.
center by the aisle.
Mr. President, Aaron McLaughlin, NBC News. With respect to tomorrow's visit from the U.S. Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense, why is it important for high-ranking U.S. officials to visit the Ukrainian capital? And what do you plan to tell them? Also, the Secretary of Defense is next expected to travel to Germany to meet with allies to discuss Ukraine's long and short-term security needs. What do you expect out of that meeting?
Я другу частину, вибачте, не почув вашого запитання.
I couldn't.
No, don't take it. I will
hear
tell you in
the,
English. I mean that the second part of your question, I didn't hear. I didn't hear. Can you repeat, please? The second one, the second part.
Yeah, the Secretary of Defense is expected to travel, the U.S. Secretary of Defense is expected to then travel to Germany to meet with allies to discuss Ukraine's long-term and short-term security needs. What would you like to see out of that meeting?
Дуже дякую. Чому важливо, щоб до нас приїжджали лідери? Відповім вам прагматично, бо не можна сьогодні зараз до нас приїжджати з пустими руками. А ми очікуємо не просто презентів чи якихось там тортиків. Ми очікуємо конкретні речі і конкретну зброю. Тому я вважаю, що ми зможемо отримати від Сполучених Штатів домовленості або частину того пакету з озброєння України, про який ми домовлялися раніше. Тому я вважаю позитивним такий сигнал. Так само, як і лідери інших держав. Вони знають, скажу вам відверто також, про те, що ми обговорюємо тихо, як каже наші дипломати, є тиха дипломатія.
Silently a lot of things. There is this silent diplomacy. I don't really like it, but still.
Тому ми, в принципі, до всіх лідерів звертаємося,
we are calling upon all the leaders and
як вам сказати,
how would I
не
put
країна
it?
для
That
трагічних
we're not a
селфі.
country for a tragic selfies.
У нас реальна війна,
We have
тому
a
приїжджайте
real
до нас.
war.
Ми з радістю
So please
вас будемо
come to
зустрічати,
Ukraine.
але
We
приїжджайте,
would be
будь
happy
ласка,
to
з тією
welcome you.
допомогою, про
But
яку ми
please
говорили,
come
і
and
яка
bring
у
this
вас є,
support
або у вас є ця можливість. Ми ніколи
since you
нічого
do
не
have
просимо
the
і не
possibilities. We
запитуємо
never
у тій
ask
чи іншій
and
державі,
we never
якщо знаємо, що у цій державі
call
цього
upon any
немає.
nation
Ніколи
for
не ставимо людей в
support.
таку
We
ситуацію
never ask if
неприємну,
we're not sure that this
Ми це
country has
прекрасно
it. We're
розуміємо.
not
Тому приїзд
creating any
Сполучених Штатів
uncomfortable
дуже важливий.
situation. That's
Окрім
why the
цього, у
visit
нас є
of United
стратегічні
States is very
питання щодо
important. We
гарантій
have
безпеки,
strategic
які
issues with
прийшов
regards
час
to
нам
the security
обговорювати вже
guarantees. And it's high
предметно,
time
тому
for
що
us
Сполучені
to have a
Штати
fruitful
буде
discussion on
однією
that
з тих
matter. Because
лідерів
United States
країн
would be one of
безпеки
the
для нашої
leaders, one of
держави.
the
До
security
речі,
guarantors for
чим
our
би
country.
все не закінчилось,
And,
і чим би і як би все
however
не
it would
закінчилось,
all end up,
гарантії безпеки нашої держави
the
потрібні.
security guarantees
І
are
ми
still
на цьому
necessary.
будемо наполягати.
And
І
we will
впевнений,
insist
що
on
ми в
that.
цьому питанні
And I'm
отримаємо
confident that we
очікуваний
will
результат.
receive
Довгоочікуваний
result,
результат.
a
Тому ми
long-awaited
чекаємо на цих
result. That's why
поважних
we are
гостей.
waiting for
А
those
щодо
guests. And
приїзду,
speaking on the arrival,
поїздки після
or
цього
let's
міністра
say
оборони
the
сказав
visit
до
of the
Німеччини,
Secretary of
ми
Defense
також
to
очікуємо
Germany,
підтримки
we are
від
expecting
Сполучених
for this,
Штатів в
the
діалозі з
for the
Німеччиною,
United
щоб
States
вони
to support
також
us in
почали
their
нам
dialogue
поставляти
with
саме те,
Germany, so
що
that
у
the
них
Germany
є,
would
і
finally
що вони
start
зараз не
to supply
використовують,
us
тому
what
що
they
війна у
have.
нас.
And
І
they're
кожного
not
разу в
using
розмові
that
з
because the
Німеччиною
war is
ми
on the territory of
нагадуємо,
Ukraine.
що
And every
війна
time
у
in our
нас,
conversation
а у
with
вас є
Germany,
те, що вам
we
зараз не
tell them
потрібно,
that the
а нам
war is
потрібно
currently
більше.
in Ukraine, and you have what we need and you don't need.
Дякую. Давайте Уніан.
Thank you. Thank you.
А
Union,
далі
and
BBC, мабуть.
then BBC, I guess. So, good evening. What would you say to Putin in the very beginning of your meeting? And how do you evaluate the work of Ukrainian ambassadors? If someone is slightly like failing, when shall we have like another wave of rotations, you know, staff rotations in what countries? So the first part, what would I say to Putin? Okay.
Я думаю, що
I think
мої питання,
that my
які б
questions,
я
the
проговорював
questions
з
that I,
Президентом Російської
or my
Федерації,
statements that I would like to discuss,
стосуються
these would
виключно
exclusively
питань, які мене цікавить
to something
виключно
I'm
як
interested in
президента України.
as a president of Ukraine,
Це питання територіальної
exclusively as a president of Ukraine. Territorial integrity, first and foremost. I would discuss the issues of territorial integrity.
Як далі буде жити наш
How
Донбас?
shall Donbass live in future? I mean, Ukrainian Donbass. How shall Ukrainian Crimea live and exist? In which specific point can we negotiate upon it? Can we actually negotiate upon it? Can we agree upon it? The most important thing is that we raise the issue. And we hear all of us to hear that Russian Federation starts responding. Not in a satisfactory way for us, but still this dialogue is initiated. So without any extra sentiments, the issues for discussion will be very specific. I'm not sure that very emotional, but you see how I do react and respond. Everything can happen, but the second part, just about the ambassadors. If someone, ambassadors, Ukrainian ambassadors, I mean, if someone is not that productive, or what exactly did you mean? You have to specify the question. Well, yes, we work with ambassadors, of course, and today ambassadors have a very clear task, and assessing their work today is very simple, as simple as can be. Their task number one is the weapon supply, the armament supply, and we will evaluate their results and performance after the war is over. We will give the grade. If someone is not able to show the result, we have such people, yes, it's true, it's a war. Nobody gives a second chance, because we are at the state of warfare. That's how we assess their performance, that's it. Okay, we have BBC, please. Left part of the hall.
Considering we've got Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, coming to Russia and then here. Realistically, what would you hope to see come out of his meeting with President Putin? And does Russia's role in the Security Council essentially render the United Nations useless in this regard?
Ну, в принципі, ми публічні меседжі вже говорили з цього приводу.
The public messages, we already presented it, we've talked about it. As long as we have the war, they can't be a member of the Security Council, nothing to talk about. That's clear. I gave you the details today. I think it's a mistake to go first to Russia and only then to Ukraine. It's just wrong. Give us messages from Russia. What is the purpose? The logic is, this is the logic. It's like...
що хтось неоднозначно ставиться, хто є агресором в цій війні. І саме це підкреслює. Тут же не питання, що спочатку до нас, потім до Росії. Не в цьому питання. В цій черзі ніякої справедливості немає.
Justice in this queue, in this line. There's no logic. We need to add logic to this recipe. What is the logic? It's simple. If you want to finish a war, if you want to bring it to an end, you must clearly know what's happening. Come and see what's happening. What he will see in Russia, no dead bodies in Kutuzovsky Avenue. What he wants to see there first. A person of that status, I'm not entitled to actually affect him, to influence him in any way, in his position, unfortunately. But it seems to me it's purely logical first to go to Ukraine, see the people, see everything they did, I mean the Russians, the consequences of the occupation, of the hostilities, and with that experience, with that baggage, to go to Russian Federation, to visit Putin, and actually with that kind of experience to formulate a message with this experience and express yourself and talk to Russia. Then you can ask questions, I guess. UN Secretary General can ask like the highest level questions. This is a top leader, a top position. Ask questions, look for solutions. How can he avoid talking to, what to offer? What to offer then if he doesn't talk to us first? It's just, it's illogical. It's pure absence of logic. But who knows? People have like a lot of experience. Maybe they know better. We'll see. Thank you, colleagues. It's been 2 hours of communication. We're about to come to an end. We have to respect the curfew. Gazeta Wyborcza, the central part, sorry, the left flank, and then answer, and then we'll see, okay? So tomorrow we have Easter, and the Easter will be celebrated by Ukrainians not only in their country, in occupied territories, unfortunately. People even abroad. There are so many Ukrainians abroad. Of course, Ukrainians, just like all other normal people in the world, they expect for the war to finish. What can you tell them or promise, maybe? Can you just do it? I prepared a big speech to my country, specifically for Easter, an Easter speech to my citizens, to citizens I do respect, of the state I love so much, and you can't even understand the scope of my love. So I truly want to have peace, like any human being. I want to wish them, all of them, to stay healthy, to stay safe. I want them to have some ordinary things, finally, like family happiness, joy. I never thought I would say this. You know what we previously said? We used to say, like, wishing some health, or wishing our grannies and grandpas to stay safe and stay healthy because they are already old and to live a long life. I never thought I can wish to have a long life to children, to toddlers, because of the war. I wish everyone, infants, toddlers, adults, teenagers, please, people, save your children if you can. Keep them alive and safe. As a president, fortunately or unfortunately, I can't say. I share the pain of each woman and each man. Everyone who unfortunately lost their children, I can understand this feeling. As a father, an answer, please, please. In the center.
ANSA Italian News Agency. Italian Prime Minister Mario Draghi is planning to come to Kiev in the next days. What do you expect from him and from the Italian government? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Recently, definitely, Italy, we can say that Italy has joined the anti-war coalition. I feel there's strong support from Prime Minister Draghi as well. I'm grateful to him. We changed our relations in such a complicated moment. We had wonderful relations, actually, between Ukraine and Italy. Now it's specifically wonderful. It became very practical. Italy supports us politically and supports us with weapons. They are not afraid to say about it. I'm so grateful to Italy. I'm grateful to Italian people. And I'm grateful to Prime Minister, and that's true. We will expect, of course, Mr. Draghi to come. We are looking forward to that. He will get the full support from Ukrainian citizens. For him, it's important, I guess. I do consider this. This is not the first Prime Minister I've seen. I mean, Italian Prime Ministers, I've seen them. I've met them. And there is certain historical watershed moment for our countries right now. Not just at the level of people. People always supported us, I mean the citizens, but at the level of government, we wanted to have the support. Italian government in this specific conflict, in this war between Russia and Ukraine, Italy picked our side, and I'm truly grateful for it, for this very clear, for this definite position. And, okay, let's have the last question. Terka, Ukraine, please. Left, this will be the last question. Thank you, colleagues. Mr. President, tomorrow we'll have 2 months from the beginning of the full-scale invasion. We woke up on February 24th from the explosions. We lived in shelters, and people lived here in the subway. And today we have the opportunity to have the press conference. What do we need to do? What do we need to get from our international partners to have a press conference in Mariupol or in any other city in eastern Ukraine or southern Ukraine or in Kherson, wherever? Thank you. Thank you. I want to tell you, frankly, Ukraine already did everything. We did everything we could. This is my opinion. We are so united. We are tied. We are the links of the chain. We just have to keep it in ourselves. Keep it by the end of the war. Save it. And keep it after the war. We are like one body right now, you know? Breathing, living body. The word power or government or president, nobody actually responds negatively to these words. No negative connotations. I'm so proud of being a leader of a state.
Вважаю, що це велика
I
перемога
consider this to be a great
і велика
victory.
наша зброя.
And our great weapon,
Об'єднання сил
the strongest weapon,
тих героїв
uniting
військових,
the power,
всіх
the forces of
спецслужбовців,
military,
знаєте,
special
всіх
service
нацгвардійців,
officers,
прикордонників,
National
які
Guard,
першими
State
зустрічали,
Border Guard who were the first to
наші
respond,
провідники зв'язку, які першими, на жаль,
the
ракети
communication
прийняли і
officers who
загинули
who were
з
the first
боку
to take the
Білорусі, з
missiles,
території
you know,
Білорусі. Тому я
those missiles
пишаю, що
flew
всі
from
наші
Belarus, and I'm
захисники, я про них всі
so
говорю,
proud,
про них
I'm
всіх
so
вони різні,
proud
і
of our
місцева
defenders.
влада.
They are
Як
so
можна
different.
любити було
Local
владу в
authorities.
цілому? Як можна
Imagine
любити
yourself
місцеву
loving your
владу, коли
mayor,
ви знаєте,
loving your
який
local
рівень
council?
підтримки був, коли люди приходили на
What's the
місцеві
level of
вибори
support when
тих чи
people
інших
came to
депутатів?
local
Просто люди
elections
не
to
ходили.
actually
Зараз
vote for MPs? They simply ignored
таке
it, you know,
об'єднання.
as we had it.
Я
Now we
вважаю,
have
що це
this,
зброя
I don't know,
номер один.
people are merging
Номер
into
один.
one body.
Тому
This
і
is weapon
вважаю, що
number one.
Україна все це зробила.
And Ukraine did it.
Зробила
We
по
did
різних
it.
причинах.
Due to various reasons.
І різні герої цього об'єднання.
And various heroes
І їх багато.
of this process we have. So many
Друга
heroes with
зброя
different faces, different
це
eyes. The second weapon,
медіа-зброя.
The media weapon.
Об'єднання медійного,
united
інформаційного ресурсу,
the media
потужна
information
зброя.
resource, it became a
І я
very
вважаю, що
powerful,
на сьогодні
strong
це
weapon. And I think
дійсно
that
друга
today,
влада.
this is truly
Так
the
вийшло
second
в нашому
power. This is
об'єднанні,
definitely the
в
power.
нашій відсічі і
That
відстоюванні
is
наших
how we can
інтересів.
oppose the
Потужна
aggressor. We stand for our
медійна
interests. We
компанія.
advocate for ourselves.
Я беру
A
як
powerful media
всередині,
campaign.
що також вплинуло сильно на об'єднання
What
нашої
actually
держави,
helped us to merge,
так
to
і
unite.
зовні. Всі
Internally and
наші
externally,
звернення, наші
all our
журналісти,
requests,
журналісти
our
західні,
journalists' announcements,
західних країн,
foreign
яким я
journalists,
хочу
journalists of
дуже
Western
сильно
countries. I'm
подякувати,
so
тому що у
grateful to
нас
you all
своя
because
армія,
we have our
але
own
це те
army.
саме, що
But,
Збройні
you know,
сили. У нас
it's like
армія,
the
але
second army that
протистояти
we have.
Росії,
We can
нашої
oppose
армії журналістів,
Russia.
інформаційній політиці Росії також неможливо.
We
Мільярди, їх
can't
дуже
oppose Russia
багато.
only
І ми показали, що це
with the help of our
і це
journalists, but with
неймовірно і
millions of
можливо,
foreign journalists. We
об'єднавшись
showed that this was
з вами,
possible.
шановні присутні
We united
журналісти,
with all of you
з
sitting
інших
here today and
держав.
your
І саме
colleagues
ви
from other
привезли
states.
і везете цю правду.
Bring the truth
як
to your people.
напередодні Пасхи, як слово Христа.
Yes, it's like
як ви апостоли
it's
цієї
the Easter
правди.
Eve.
І
You
це
are like
правда.
the
Це чесність.
you are
І ми не
like
просимо
the
вас говорити, що ви любите Україну. Ми просимо,
supporters,
що
you're the Christ followers.
Україна
You bring his
воює,
word to
і що
people.
Росія сюди прийшла
You tell
зі своїми
about Russia, about its
планами
aggression, about
тиранії,
its plans,
загарбницьким
about its
планом. Ви
tyranny,
самі
about
бачите це.
its
І ви все відчуваєте,
monstrous
і тому ми вас
hostilities. You
просимо
feel it, you
нести
see
тільки
it. That's
те,
why
що
we ask
ви
you to
завдяки
bring
рівню
only
свого
something that
професіоналізму
you know.
можете
You as
принести
professionals, you can
правду.
bring
І це
the
і є
truth to
друге
people.
велике
This
об'єднання.
is a big-
Велике об'єднання. Ми зі свого боку
This is a big
робили
power
все,
that gives us
щоб
unity as well.
політично
We,
об'єднати країни
as government, we
Європейського
as
Союзу.
political
Ми
leaders, we did
звертались
everything
і
to
в парламентах,
get the
ви це
support of
знаєте,
European
і
countries.
по-різному, і
We
воювали,
actually,
і
we talked
іноді,
to governments. We
іноді.
talked. We had another
Може мене
front line
вибачить
at the political level. Maybe
хтось
someone
із
will
країн
actually apologize
європейських.
me from
Іноді, да, поводили
European
себе
countries. Sometimes
нахабно,
we
але
were
зрозумійте,
insolent, but try to
через те, що ми
understand us.
воюємо,
We
і
are
наші люди гинуть.
at the state of
По-іншому не
war.
можемо.
My people
Днів
are dying.
мало, часу мало.
We don't have
Щоденно
time. We
вмирають
don't have
оці
minutes, days, and
трьохмісячні
years.
діти.
We
І
have
тому,
3-month-old
і я так себе
children
поводжу.
dying. That's
І
why I
тому,
behave
тому
like
що
that.
так
That's why I'm
відчуваю.
insolent, because
Тому
I
що
feel it.
відчуваю, що так
Because I
швидше,
feel that
і що
this
так
will give me a
буде
fast
результат.
result,
І
and
це
this
третє
will give me a strong
об'єднання
result. This
країн
is the
Європейського
third front
Союзу.
line, the
Вони
third army we
ніколи
have.
так не були об'єднані.
European
Мені
states,
про це
they've never
сказали
been
всі.
so much united.
Всі. Остання
Everybody
наша
told me about
зустріч,
it. The last
Андрій Іванович, ви
meeting.
пам'ятаєте,
Андрій, you
коли ми
remember,
зустрілись
when we
з
actually met,
прем'єрами Іспанії
the prime ministers of Spain and, the Prime Minister of
Данії. прем'єркою Данії ми зустрілися, вони сказали, що ми ніколи цього не відчували. Нам не можна втратити таке об'єднання. І вони мені дякували, хоча це вдячність всім нам, всьому нашому народу. Вони дякували, що ніколи Євросоюз не був таким об'єднаним заради такої справжні
European
цілі
Union was never
заради
that
тих
united at
цінностей.
such a level
Ми
to
завжди
protect
вони
the
говорили
values.
про ці
We
цінності.
always
Але ми
spoke about
зараз
those values,
наживо
but right now,
відчуваємо це.
these
Ми
are the
розуміємо,
values
за
that
що
we
ви
fight for. We
боретесь.
understand,
Ми
you
ми
understand that
хочемо
you fight for.
допомогти. Тому
With
це
us, we
третє
wanna help
об'єднання, політичне,
you
потужне об'єднання,
to bring this
що
truth.
веде
This
до
is the
перемоги.
unity that
До
brings us to
перемоги. Не
victory.
хочу вам говорити,
I don't want to
не
tell
дай
you.
Боже, потім образяться, скажуть, що це
Okay,
було
you'll get
особисто.
offended
Якийсь
and
прем'єр-міністр,
try
який,
to,
да, з
you
прем'єр-міністрів
feel
мені
this is like
сказав,
kind of this is too
завдяки
personal.
Україні я зрозумів
One of the prime
зміст
ministers
НАТО.
just told me that thanks to Ukraine, I
Для
understood what
чого
NATO
цей альянс
is about,
і
what the alliance is
яким він
about.
повинен бути. І
I got that message.
завдання
And
цьому
how should it look like?
альянсу.
The task for the
І
alliance,
чи спроможен альянс об'єднатися
if it's
швидко
capable
і
of
протистояти агресії
actually responding
будь-якій.
quickly to any kind of aggression.
Тому Україна
That is why
багато що
Ukraine,
зробила.
it did so
Багато
much.
що
It did
зробила для
so
того, щоб
much.
об'єднати світ. І
It did
тепер, коли є
unbelievably
це об'єднання,
many things, you know, many
залишається
things to unite the world.
зброя.
And not only the weapon
І
is there.
саме
We have the
так.
unity, but
І, на жаль,
the
в
weapon.
ці
That's what we
часи
need. Yes.
і в ці свята, і на нашій святій
we're about to have a
землі,
religious holiday
так,
at this
що
holy land
народження
of Kiev
християнства,
Rus,
то, що,
where the Orthodox Christianity was actually born
християнство в Україні
so
саме
many
на цій
centuries ago. Because
частині території.
this is the place right
Незважаючи на
now,
те, що
Kiev is
каже
the place where the
Росія, ми
Orthodox Christianity
знаємо,
was
що
born.
таке
Russia says
Київська
something like,
Русь. Ми
no,
знаємо,
no Moscow was there. We know where it came from. We know where the
Ми не
roots are.
боремось за те,
We
що
do
ми
not
є
fight
першими.
for being
Але ми
the
боремось
first.
за існування цієї
We
історії.
fight for
І
existence
тому
of our
боротись за
history, for
існування,
existence itself, for
незважаючи
our
на
own
те, що ми
existence.
боремось за мир,
We fight
я
for peace.
повинен це назвати.
I just have to
Боротись за
say
мир
it.
ми
We fight for
повинні
peace.
з потужною зброєю.
But we
І
have
це
to fight for peace
останнє
not just with the word
об'єднання,
and truth, but
яке
with the
нам
weapon.
потрібно.
This is the last
Тут
piece
всім
of the
країнам
puzzle that we have to
треба
get.
стати,
All
вже
countries have to
об'єднатися.
stand up,
Вже це
being
вийшло.
united. We are united already. We all
Стати
are united.
сміливими.
Please become.
І
Don't lose your courage. Be
сміливими
brave. Be
людьми
brave.
і
Be
сміливими
the brave
лідерами.
people. Be the brave
І не
leaders.
тільки заради
And not
нас,
just for
не
us,
тільки заради
not
нашої
just for
перемоги,
our victory,
а заради себе, тому
but
що
for you,
ваші
for yourselves,
суспільства,
because your
ваші
communities, your
люди і
societies, your
народи
nations, your
чекають
people,
саме
they
таких лідерів,
wait for such leaders
саме
to
таких.
arise.
І вже після
They
нас,
wait for it. And
в
after
гарному
us,
сенсі,
well, after us in
ми
a
не
good sense,
прощаємось.
we are not saying
Я
goodbye
маю на
now.
увазі,
I mean,
після цієї війни
after this
ви
war,
побачите,
you will
що
see
ваші суспільства
that your
змінять вас,
societies, your nations will change
Всі ви
you.
будете сміливими
You will
і
be
будете
brave.
захищати
You will
свої
be
держави
ready to
так
defend
само
your states,
потужно, як
just like we do, with the
підтримуєте
same
нас. Ми в це
fierce motivation
віримо.
that we have today.
Дякую.
By supporting us,
Шановні
thank you. We truly believe
журналісти,
in that.
не на
Thank you,
всі
ladies and
питання
gentlemen.
змогли відповісти.
Unfortunately, I didn't
Але
have
ви
time for all the
сказали
questions, but
непогану пропозицію.
you had a very good offer.
Зустрінемось, коли
Let's
звільнимо
meet
Маріуполь.
in Mariupol
Тож
when we free
ми
it.
продовжимо.
So
Я думаю, скоро.
we will continue, and I hope it will happen soon.
Дякую, шановні колеги.